Long before that night in the parking lot, I used to think nothing bad could happen in a Walmart. I guess that sounds naive now, but there's something about the dull safety of fluorescent lights and endless shelves of clearance items that felt harmless, predictable. Maybe that's why we always did our shopping after dark. No screaming kids, no awkward small talk in the detergent aisle. Just us and a handful of night shift stalkers trying not to fall asleep on their feet. It had been a long day. Logan's sister threw a birthday party for her youngest, her third kid in 5 years, and by the time we left, my head was pounding. But Logan, ever the practical one, reminded me we were out of dog food. One of the bathroom lights had blown out and his charger had finally given up the ghost. Walmart was on the way home, and he figured we could get in and out quick. It was nearly 2 in the morning when we pulled into the nearly empty lot of the Woodrow Road Supercenter in Lubbock. The store looked like it was sleepwalking. Buzzing lights, a couple of carts left stranded in the loading zone, and only 2 other cars in the entire lot. We went in through the garden entrance. The second we stepped inside, something felt wrong. There was no music. That was the first thing I noticed. Just the distant hum of refrigeration and the occasional beep from a scanner near self-checkout. The air smelled like plastic and stale air conditioning. The place looked normal, but it felt hollow, like someone had gutted all the life out of it. Logan didn't notice. He was in his usual after-midnight mood, cracking dumb jokes and tossing a massive bag of Purina into the cart like he was showing off at the gym. I laughed, because that's what we did. He played the fool, I rolled my eyes, and we moved through the aisles like we always had. Then I saw him. Tall, jittery, like he'd been mainlining espresso and bad decisions all night. He stood near the toy aisle, pacing, eyes darting back and forth like he was looking for someone who might not exist. He wore a camo jacket that looked 2 decades old and cargo shorts despite the freezing outside air. His hands were clenched and twitching at his sides. I didn't say anything at first. People like that come and go in 24-hour stores. You see all kinds at 2 a.m. But then I noticed the woman. She was lurking near the soda display. Bleach blonde hair tied up in a messy bun, lipstick smeared across one cheek like she'd wiped it off in a rush. She wore mismatched flip-flops. Her arms were red and raw from scratching, and she mumbled to herself as she peeked around the corner to watch us. "Logan," I whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "I think those 2 are following us." He glanced over his shoulder and shrugged. "Finish up." "They're probably just weirdos, babe, let's just..." I wanted to believe him. But every time we turned a corner, they weren't far behind. Watching. Waiting. When the woman started laughing, loud, erratic, like someone had told her the worst joke in the world, I knew we had to leave. We rushed through the self-checkout. No attendants, no security. Not even the janitor in sight. Just us and the click of the scanner and the mechanical voice thanking us for shopping. The second those sliding glass doors opened, the cold hit me. So did the fear, because he was waiting. He walked toward us fast, real fast. I could hear the soles of his sneakers scraping on the pavement, each step sharper than the last. "Hey!" he shouted, voice cracking like it hadn't been used in days. "You think this is funny?" Logan turned, holding both bags, his voice steady. "What's the problem, man?" The guy's face twisted with something between panic and rage. "Your bag. You think I didn't see you take it?" "That's my girlfriend's wallet," and I froze. My heart was already racing, but now it felt like it dropped into my stomach. I looked back, and there she was, the woman from the soda display, now right behind him, eyes wide and darting like she was looking for exits that didn't exist. "We saw you," she said, her voice shrill. "He saw you take it. Empty your bag." "We didn't take anything," I said, trying to keep my voice even as I fumbled for the keys in my coat pocket. The man raised his voice again, this time throwing a plastic shopping basket at the hood of our car with a loud clang. Logan dropped the bags and stepped in front of me. "Back off," he said. "Charger." "You're mistaken, all right? There's nothing in our bags but dog food but neither of them was listening. The woman was now circling toward the passenger side, and the man had his hand in his jacket pocket like he might pull something out. I hit the unlock and screamed, "Get in!" We both dove in. I barely had the door shut before I locked it and threw the car into reverse. He banged his fist on the window once before we peeled out of the parking lot. The headlights followed. A gray SUV, beat to hell, no plates. I could see it through the rear view, just a shadow trailing us, turning when we turned. Never speeding, just keeping pace. I took residential back streets, doing loops, hoping to lose them. Logan was on the phone with 911, voice clipped. "They're following us, no plates, they accused us of theft. I don't know what they're on, but we're not stopping." We saw the police station a block up. I didn't hesitate. I swerved into the lot so fast the tires screeched. As soon as we pulled up, the SUV stopped. Then it backed up, gone before the officers even stepped outside. We gave our statements. The cops were sympathetic, but said without plates or any footage, there wasn't much they could do. They promised to patrol the area more at night. But I knew that meant it was over, for them, at least. Not for us. We drove home in silence, barely breathing. I kept glancing in the mirrors. Logan held my hand, but neither of us said much. That night, we didn't sleep. It was 3 days later when I heard the footsteps. Our house is nothing fancy. One story, a small fenced-in backyard, Logan's grill rusting on the patio. Quiet neighborhood, mostly old folks or young families. Not the kind of place where you expect to hear gravel crunching outside your bedroom window in the middle of the night. But I heard it. Slow, deliberate. Like someone walking the fence line, dragging their feet just enough to make it sound wrong. I looked out. Nothing. Logan checked too. Still nothing. We convinced ourselves it was a stray cat, maybe the neighbor's kid sneaking out. Something normal, something explainable. But the next night it happened again. And this time, our dog, Nora, the laziest mutt you've ever seen, wouldn't stop barking. She stood at the back door, ears up, body rigid, barking like she was ready to tear something apart. And I'll never forget the way she looked. Not angry, scared. Logan stepped out with a flashlight. I stayed inside, clutching my phone. He walked the perimeter, light sweeping across the fence and patio. He found faint footprints in the dirt by the back gate. Adult-sized, too big for a kid. We called the cops again. Another officer came out. He looked around, made some notes, shrugged. Could be someone casing the place. Try to keep your lights on, maybe get a camera if you can. Probably nothing. But I knew better. I'd seen the look in that woman's eyes, that wild, twitchy paranoia. She wasn't just angry. She was watching, and I had the feeling we'd been marked. We didn't go back to that Walmart, ever. I couldn't even drive past it without my stomach knotting up. Every flickering light, every creaky shopping cart reminded me of that man's shaking voice. That laugh from the woman. That feeling that something bad was about to happen. And did. The house never felt the same either. We bought cameras. Logan replaced the fence lock. Nora started sleeping in our room, ears twitching all night. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there still remembered us. Once, while gassing up my car, I swore I saw her across the street near a bus stop. Same messy bun, same blank stare. I blinked, and she was gone. Another time, Logan told me he thought he saw the SUV, parked 2 streets over, no plates. We moved out within a month, packed up our lives and left. Told friends it was about a better commute. But the truth was, I couldn't stay. I couldn't sleep. Because something in that store shifted reality for me. It reminded me that danger doesn't always knock. Sometimes it follows you quietly through fluorescent lit aisles. Sometimes it waits outside your bedroom window. We live in Austin now. New house, new jobs, safer area. But I still shop during the day. I avoid 24-hour stores. I don't wear headphones when I'm out late. I check my mirrors a little too often. And I flinch every time a shopping basket clangs too loud. People ask why we left Lubbock. I say we needed a change, a bigger city, better options. But sometimes at night when the house creaks and Nora growls at the back door, I wonder, was it ever over? Did they move on? Or are they still looking for something they think we took, something we never had? I think about that man's eyes, wild, empty, trembling. I think about the woman's laugh. I think about how fast everything normal can twist into something terrifying. But more than anything, I think about the fact that no one else ever seemed to notice. Not the cashier, not the cops, not the other shoppers. And that, more than anything, is what haunts me still. Sometimes evil doesn't wear a mask. It just walks behind you quietly, unnoticed by everyone else. Stay aware. Trust your instincts. And don't assume safety just because the world around you seems ordinary. Some people think scary things only happen in the middle of nowhere. Lonely back roads, creepy motels, truck stops at 3 a.m. But I've learned that the places you trust the most, the ones that feel routine, familiar, are the ones that can turn on you the fastest. For me, it was a Walmart. Friday nights were my quiet ritual. After 5 straight days of troubleshooting phones, replacing cracked screens, and dealing with customers who thought screaming would make their water-damaged laptops magically boot again, I'd head to the Walmart on Cloverdale BLVD. Groceries, toiletries, freezer stuff, just enough to keep me from having to deal with weekend crowds. That night in late October, I was more burnt out than usual. My manager had thrown me under the bus over a botched iPad repair that wasn't even mine. We'd had this team meeting where she kept dancing around blame, but everyone knew who she was aiming at. Me. I held it together, smiled like it didn't sting, but the minute I got in my car, I felt like crying. Instead, I drove to Walmart. It was a little after 8:30. The lot was half full. The sky that kind of purple blue that makes you forget what time it is. I remember thinking it was colder than I expected. Not freezing, but that California kind of cold where you start questioning whether you should have worn a jacket. Inside, the store felt off. It wasn't empty, but it wasn't busy either. Just enough people to not feel alone, but not enough to feel safe. A weird in-between. I was walking down the cereal aisle, half reading my shopping list, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. That's when I saw him. Middle-aged, maybe late 50s, salt and pepper hair, wearing a black puffer jacket, standing by the oatmeal like he forgot what he came for. I didn't think much of it at first, just another tired shopper zoning out after a long day. I passed him. He didn't move. 20 minutes later, I looped back to the front of the store for a last-minute thing and saw him again. Same spot. Same blank stare. This time, he wasn't looking at oatmeal. He was watching me. I didn't like it. I changed aisles, tried to lose him. But I saw him again. Aisle 14, just outside the cleaning supplies. He turned the corner right after I did, pushing an empty cart like he was just browsing. But he wasn't browsing. He smiled at me. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile that stretches too wide and holds too long. My stomach knotted up. I moved to Home Goods, pretended to look at shower curtains. He followed. I ducked into women's clothing. He was still there. No cart, no items, just empty hands and steady eyes. I found a cashier nearby, maybe 19, probably more interested in TikTok than store security. I tried to catch their eye, maybe send a silent signal, but they didn't notice. And that's when he spoke. "You live around here?" His voice was calm. Too calm. I turned slowly, my hands cold, my throat dry. "Just shopping," I said. "Can I help you?" He smiled again. "You just look familiar. I swear I've seen you before." "I don't think so," I said. I didn't wait for a response. I walked away fast, straight to self-checkout, straight into the dark. I scanned everything fast, forgot half the stuff on my list. My hands were shaking, but I tried to play it cool. I didn't want to make a scene, didn't want anyone to think I was overreacting. That's how we're trained, right? Don't escalate. Don't draw attention. Don't be dramatic. I paid with Apple Pay, stuffed the bag into the cart, and headed straight for the exit. The sliding doors opened to a blast of cold air. I could feel my breath fog up in front of me. And then I saw him again. He was standing by the cart return, phone to his ear, but his eyes weren't on the screen. They were locked on me. I tightened my grip on the cart and kept walking, keys already in hand. I scanned the rows of cars, making sure no one was behind me. When I reached mine, I opened the door, threw my bag in, and jumped inside. Locked the doors, sat there, tried to breathe. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw him. He was walking toward my car, slow, deliberate, like he knew I had nowhere to go. I didn't wait. I turned the key, reversed out fast enough that my tires squealed, and drove. At the first red light, I checked the mirror again. No one. No headlights. But I couldn't stop shaking. My whole body was tight, like my muscles were bracing for something. I kept expecting to see that puffer jacket come out from behind a bush or that too long smile in my side mirror. When I pulled into my apartment lot, I didn't get out right away. I sat there, listening, watching. I didn't sleep much that night. Didn't tell anyone either. Because what do you say? That a guy looked at you funny in a store? That he followed you to your car? It wasn't a crime, but it felt like a warning. The car was there again 3 nights later. It was an old black Ford Taurus, parked across from my building around 11 p.m. I'd gone out to take the trash to the dumpster when I noticed it. Headlights off, just sitting there. The driver wasn't moving. I could only see the silhouette. At first, I told myself it was nothing. A neighbor's guest, someone waiting for a ride. But I stayed outside, standing behind the dumpster like an idiot, watching from the shadows. 15 minutes later, the car started, drove away slowly. I told myself it was a coincidence, just someone being weird, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I slept with my curtains open that night, watching for headlights. The next night, it happened again. Same car, same spot, same silhouette. I turned off my apartment lights and sat on the floor with my phone in my hand. After a few minutes of watching, I dialed the non-emergency police line. An officer came by 20 minutes later. I watched him walk up to the car and shine a flashlight inside. The engine was off now. The driver rolled the window down. I couldn't hear what was said. After a minute or two, the officer walked back and told me there wasn't much they could do. No license plate on the front, he said, showed. Guy said he was just waiting for someone who never. He's been here 2 nights in a row, I said. Same time. We'll note it, just keep an eye out. Call us if it happens again. He left. So did the car. But I didn't feel any safer. After that, I started changing my routines. I parked closer to the building, took the trash out during the day, walked with my keys between my fingers and pepper spray clipped to my purse. I didn't tell my coworkers. I didn't tell my mom. What was I supposed to say? That I was being watched? That maybe I imagined it? That I didn't want to go back to Walmart ever again because of a smile that held too long and a car that kept showing up? Instead, I kept moving. It never happened again after that week. No more cars. No more silhouettes. Just the long silence of wondering what might have happened if I hadn't noticed him just early enough. If I hadn't trusted my gut. Sometimes I see women in stores looking over their shoulder the way I did. I make eye contact now. I try to let them know I see them. I wish someone had done that for me. It's been over a year. I still avoid late-night errands, still keep pepper spray on me, still don't park next to cart returns. People think the scariest stories happen in shadows, in forests, in haunted houses. But the truth is, the scariest ones happen in plain sight, in aisles lined with cereal boxes, in parking lots under flickering lights, in the spaces where no one thinks to look twice. That man in the black puffer jacket never touched me. Never said more than a few words, but he changed everything. I think about how easily it could have gone the other way. What if I hadn't left when I did? What if I hadn't locked my doors in time? What if I'd brushed it off? We're trained not to trust ourselves, not to make a scene, to smile, to be polite, to second-guess our fear. But fear is there for a reason. It kept me alive. Your instincts are your first line of defense. If something feels off, don't wait for proof. Listen, act and protect yourself. You're not being dramatic, you're being smart. Some nights imprint on your bones. You don't remember every detail clearly, but the feeling, it lingers. For me, it started with an argument, the kind that makes you forget where you are, makes your chest tight for hours. I'd just left a friend's engagement party in Longview. I wasn't supposed to run into my ex, but life has a way of throwing gasoline on anything that's barely stopped smoldering. By the time I left the party, my head was pounding. We'd had words, sharp ones, about the past, about what we didn't fix. I left early, driving into the dark with the windows cracked and the radio off, trying to make the ache in my chest go quiet. Around 2:30 in the morning, somewhere near Tyler, my fuel light blinked on. I was low, not just in the tank but in energy, in patience, in everything. My phone was nearly dead too, down to 4%. Not great conditions for being stranded anywhere. That's when I saw the Walmart Supercenter on South Broadway. The store itself was closed, but the fuel station lights were still on. Bright halogen beams cutting through the empty lot. No music, no traffic. Just the low hum of fluorescent buzzing, the kind that never fully goes silent. I pulled into pump 7. It was just muscle memory at that point. Right hand on the wheel, left elbow on the door, eyes half glazed over. The lot was dead. 2 parked cars sat in the shadows near the side of the building. Another pickup, beat up, paint chipped, was angled weirdly across the fire lane, like someone had stopped mid-thought and never corrected course. I stepped out of the car, hoodie pulled tight, and started fueling. It was colder than it should have been for April in Texas. Wind bit at my hands. That's when I saw him. Pump 5, just to my left. A man stood there, not pumping gas, not looking at a car, just standing. Tall, rail-thin, dirty jeans, stained windbreaker zipped halfway up, and a cigarette hanging crooked from his mouth. He wasn't just looking around. He was looking at me. "You got a smoke?" he asked, raspy voice like dry leaves scraping concrete. I didn't make eye contact. "Sorry, don't smoke." He stepped closer, too close. "You sure?" he said, squinting. "You look like someone who does." I forced a half laugh, the polite kind you offer strangers at 2 a.m. "Nope, just need gas, man." But he stayed there, watching. His hands twitched like he had no idea what to do with them. He kept glancing around the parking lot like he was waiting on someone, or something. I knew right then I had to leave. I rushed to finish, yanked the nozzle out too fast, splashed gas on my shoe. He flinched slightly at the sound, but didn't back off. I moved quickly, fumbling with the cap, eyes darting toward the pickup in the fire lane. Still empty. Behind me, he muttered something. I wasn't sure if it was directed at me or just to the night. "You think I don't know what you did?" He suddenly barked. I paused, half in my car. "What?" I said, louder than I intended. He stepped forward, the cigarette now gone, eyes locked on mine. I said, he growled, "You shouldn't be here. Not you. Not after what you did." My hands were shaking. I slammed the door shut and hit the lock button so hard it echoed through the cabin. The man picked something off the ground, a chunk of broken concrete, maybe part of a curb, and threw it. It hit the rear window with a loud crack but didn't shatter. That was enough. I peeled out of the lot, tires screeching, heart hammering so loud it drowned out every other sound. I clipped a curb on the way out but didn't care. I drove aimlessly for a few blocks, finally pulling into the lot behind a 24-hour diner. I didn't eat. I didn't even get out. I just sat there with the engine idling, trying to keep my breath steady. When I finally called 911, my voice sounded like someone else's. Flat. Mechanical. I told the dispatcher what happened. They said they'd send someone to meet me. 20 minutes later, 2 officers pulled in behind me. I gave them the best description I could. Tall, maybe 6'3", dirty clothes, mid-40s, maybe older, windbreaker, had a cigarette. One of them nodded like he'd heard it before. "We've had a few incidents with a guy who fits that description," he said. "Usually disappears before we get there. Probably homeless. Could be high. Might be schizophrenic. But we've never been able to pin him down." They said they'd check it out. They were polite, but I could tell it was just another call to them. Another shadow in a city full of them. I went back the next afternoon. Don't ask me why. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe I needed to see that it was just a place again. That it didn't hold whatever fear had settled in my gut the night before. The daytime version of that gas station felt completely different. Families. Loud music from car speakers. 2 kids fighting over a bag of chips outside the store. A cashier humming along to country radio behind the counter. The world had reset itself. I walked around my car. There was a crack in the rear window where the concrete chunk had hit. Not deep, but enough to spider the glass. Insurance could deal with it later. I asked the clerk inside if they had any footage from last night. He was young, maybe 20. Didn't seem surprised when I asked. "We had a guy out there again?" he said. "You've seen him before?" He nodded. "At the gas pumps. Every couple weeks. Never buys anything. Just walks around. Sometimes screams." I asked if they had footage. He shrugged. "Cameras are mostly for show. They cover the register, not the lot. Sorry." Then he reached under the counter and pulled something out. A small, faded gas station receipt. "He dropped this," he said. "Found it by pump 5 this morning. Figured it was nothing, but..." He handed it to me. My stomach dropped. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were 2 words. Jordan R. I hadn't told him my name. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with the lights on, my cracked phone plugged into the charger, watching the front door like I expected it to open on its own. Every car that passed outside sent my heart racing. Who was he? How did he know my name? I never saw him before, never helped or wronged anyone that looked like him. But there was something in his eyes, like he wasn't just looking at me, like he recognized me. Over the next week, I found myself seeing him everywhere. Not literally, but in the corner of mirrors, in reflections, in the shape of a man walking down the road just out of focus. I'd blink, and it would be someone else, but the fear lingered. I stopped driving at night, always filled my tank during the day. I kept pepper spray in my center console, upgraded to a phone with better emergency features, and started parking under streetlights. The receipt? I still have it, folded up in a drawer, like proof that it happened, like a warning. It's been 4 years. I moved cities, got a better job. Life feels mostly normal. But that night never really left me. Sometimes when I drive late, early mornings, dark stretches of road, I still feel it, that tension, like someone's watching from the shadows. At red lights, I check every mirror. My eyes always drift to the corners, to gas stations, to anyone standing too still. I've never seen him again. Not really, but I've learned something important. Danger doesn't always come with flashing lights or blaring alarms. Sometimes it walks up slow, smiles too long, asks for a smoke it doesn't need, and sometimes it knows your name before you've said a word. I don't think that man was trying to rob me. I don't even think he wanted anything. I think he was drawn to something he thought he recognized in me. Maybe anger, maybe guilt, maybe something I don't even fully understand myself. But what I know now is this: you don't have to explain your fear to anyone. When your gut says something's wrong, listen. Even if you're tired, even if it seems crazy, because you only get one chance to be right about it. And trust me, you don't want to wait until someone's standing at pump 7 with your name already written down. Your intuition isn't a flaw. It's a survival tool. You don't owe comfort or explanation to strangers who make you feel unsafe. Trust your instincts, act early, and never ignore the signal that something isn't right. Sometimes that signal is the only thing keeping you one step ahead. Long before I found peace among dusty book spines and coffee-stained counters, I was a floor lead in the appliances section of a Walmart supercenter in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It wasn't glamorous, wasn't the kind of job you go to school dreaming about, but it paid the bills. Steady hours, decent health insurance, and after my divorce, steady was all I could afford to want. It was supposed to be temporary, a year, maybe two, just until I figured out what the next chapter of my life looked like. But years rolled by. One shift bled into another. I became dependable, the kind of employee they asked to train new hires, close the registers, stay late without fuss. They liked that I didn't cause waves. I stopped thinking about what came next. And that's how they like it, places like that. They break you down into routines, get you used to beige walls and buzzing lights, tell you a kind word during shift meetings, then remind you never to put yourself at risk for company property. Laminated safety posters next to time clocks. Don't be a hero, corporate said, smiling on, de-escalate, stay calm, walk away. But no poster tells you what to do when fear walks through the front doors and locks eyes with you. No training video prepares you for the moment your body moves before your brain does. And no one tells you that even when it's over, it's not over. Because sometimes, long after they're gone, you still see their shadows. It was mid-June. Summer air thick with sweat and storm clouds. I remember that day because I wore the wrong shoes. Canvas flats that soaked through before my lunch break. The weather had been teasing rain since morning, but by 5, the sky over Tulsa looked bruised and ready to snap. I was rearranging countertop ovens on the back end of aisle 22. The store felt strange that day, like the lights were too bright or the air wasn't moving right. It wasn't anything I could name. Just a hum under the skin, that kind of thing. Appliances is a quieter section, which I liked. Fewer kids screaming, less chaos, just me, shelves, and the low rattle of shopping carts. I was restocking when I saw them. 6 young men in hooded sweatshirts and heavy backpacks, moving fast but not quite running. Like they'd practiced. 2 went ahead, hands in their pockets. 2 more flanked the sides, watching the ceiling, watching us. That kind of movement sets off alarms you don't even realize you have until they start ringing. I reached for my walkie. Dead. Again. Amber, I said, turning to a new hire stacking air fryers a few feet away. She was 19. Soft-spoken. Good kid. Go to the manager's office. Now. Tell Scott there's a group acting off in appliances. Something's not right. She hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. Just go. And then it started. One of them knocked over a display of toasters. Another pulled bolt cutters from his jacket, like he'd been waiting for the cue, and snipped through the wire case around our high-ticket speakers. Fast, clean, like he'd done it before. I stepped forward. You can't do that. Put that down. One of them laughed. Or what? Another grabbed a speaker, hoisted it over his shoulder like it weighed nothing, and started walking toward the main aisle. I raised my voice. Stop, I already called security. Lie. A bad one. A guy, maybe 20, thin, jittery, walked up fast and slapped the walkie from my hand. It clattered to the tile. Don't lie to me, bitch, he hissed. That voice, low and sharp like broken glass, dug into me deeper than the words. I froze, backed up, fists clenched. Then came shouting from up front, a crash, metal against glass, and they ran. They barreled through the main aisle, carts packed with electronics, shoving, knocking things down. I saw one of them elbow a man, white hair, probably in his 70s, clean off his feet. Another kicked over a wet floor sign, then ducked under a hanging promo banner for lawn chairs. I ran after them. Instinct, not bravery. I just needed someone to see them, to do something. Hey! I shouted, breath catching. Stop! No one did. They cut left, down past toys, and out through the garden center. The door had already been propped open, planned. Not just opportunistic. They knew this store. Knew where to go, when to hit, where cameras didn't quite cover. Scott showed up at the front just in time to watch their backs vanish through the exit. Then came the silence. Walmart doesn't go quiet often. Even when it's slow, there's always beeping, chatting, carts scraping tile. But in that moment, everything just stopped, like the store itself was holding its breath. The customers stared. One woman clutched her toddler, whispering, "It's okay, baby," over and over like a chant. A man stood frozen by the detergent aisle, phone in hand but not recording. Just stunned. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Statements were taken. I was walked to the break room, my hands still trembling. Amber was there, shaken but okay. Scott paced the hall, talking to someone on speaker. I caught the words. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. "She should have backed off," he said. "That's what we train them to do. We don't need lawsuits." I stepped into the room, picked up my backpack, and walked past him without a word. Didn't even look at him. I didn't quit that day. I went home, cracked a beer, sat in the dark, and listened to the rain finally come. But something inside me was already packing its bags. A week later, it happened again. Not at my store, but close. Another Walmart, 10 minutes east. This time, one of the suspects pulled a knife when a stockboy tried to block the exit. The kid needed stitches. No arrests were made. That was all I needed. I typed my resignation that night, printed it out, folded it once, and handed it to Scott the next morning. He looked surprised. "You sure?" he asked. "Dead sure." He nodded, like he already knew he'd lose the argument. I took a few days, cleared my head, and followed a lead a friend had mentioned, a little bookstore downtown looking for part-time help. Less pay, less pressure. More hours spent around stories that didn't involve chaos or corporate liability forms. I took the job. It didn't fix everything. Life was still paycheck to paycheck, but I could breathe again. I knew the names of my customers. They asked about my day. One woman brought me coffee every Thursday just because. I started sleeping better, laughed more, but it didn't leave me. Not completely. One night, a few months after I started at the bookstore, I was closing alone. It was fall, windy. That kind of Oklahoma night where dry leaves sound like whispers at your ankles. I stepped outside, locked the gate, and turned toward my car in the lot across the street. That's when I saw him, hood up, back against a light pole, half shadowed. He wasn't moving, just watching. My heart jumped. I froze. It couldn't be. There was no way. But everything in my body screamed run. I blinked. He was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I kept trying to remember his face, but I hadn't seen it clearly. Maybe it wasn't one of them. Maybe it was just some guy waiting for a bus, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that I felt it all over again. The helplessness, the noise, the silence afterward. I kept going. Didn't let it ruin the job. Didn't tell anyone at work. But after that, I started locking the bookstore door a little earlier. I carried pepper spray. Learned the names of the officers who patrolled our block. I didn't become paranoid, just prepared. There's a difference. You don't get to pick when the world shows you its sharp edges. You only get to choose how you carry the scars. I still think about Walmart sometimes, the people I left behind. Amber, still in college last I heard. Scott, probably still quoting safety policies over the phone. Maybe they moved on too. Maybe not. But I know this. Corporate tells you not to be a hero, not to engage, not to escalate. And maybe they're right, from a risk standpoint. But at the end of the day, you have to live with the choices you make in those moments. Sometimes being human means acting before you think. Sometimes it means saying stop, even when your voice shakes. And sometimes it means walking away when you realize a job can pay your bills but still bankrupt your soul. The world doesn't always reward you for doing the right thing, but do it anyway. Because your peace of mind is worth more than their property. Before everything went sideways, I used to tell myself that Walmart night shifts weren't so bad. Sure, they messed with your sleep and made your body ache in strange places, but they were quiet, predictable even. Most nights passed with little more than a handful of tired truckers, college kids grabbing snacks, or overworked parents picking up last-minute school supplies. The lights buzzed, the clock crawled, and the silence gave you space to think. But that was the problem, thinking too much. I never wanted to go back to nights. After my panic attack back in August, my doctor gave me one of those stern lectures about routine and cortisol and how daylight was good for healing. I'd started getting better, honestly. I had mornings again, I got sun, I could breathe without my chest seizing up. But then Kenny, one of the new hires, ghosted us 3 days in a row. Management sent out one of those vague group texts. "We're asking for all hands to cover this week's shortfalls. Anyone able to help overnight?" I didn't even respond. Didn't plan to. But when I came in for my day shift, my team lead, Rhonda, pulled me aside with that smile that wasn't really a smile. "I know you've had a rough few months, Casey, but you've always been reliable. Could really use you just for a few nights." I was tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of being seen as fragile. So I said yes. It was a Thursday when it happened, late October, the kind of cold that sits in your bones, even inside. I was assigned automotive and hardware, which was dead at that hour. My section had been reset that week, so I was just straightening shelves, scanning barcodes, zoning like always. It was around 3:05 a.m. when I saw it, wedged between 2 air freshener packs on the bottom hook. A receipt, old, yellowed, curled slightly at the edges, not one of ours, at least not one I'd seen before. The date caught my eye first. October 19th, 2001. That didn't make sense. The store had overhauled its POS system in 2006. I remember because it was a nightmare for inventory training. I turned the receipt over in my hand. The paper felt weird, soft, like it had been handled too much. But it was still legible. Ash bait, 1 gal, molt bags, 2 CT, infant sweater, size too small, total 0 point. At the bottom, in faded red ink. He never clocked out. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first instinct was Halloween prank. Maybe some assistant manager with too much time and a printer thought it'd be funny. But something about it unsettled me. I folded it into my back pocket and kept working. I wish I'd thrown it out. Or maybe I don't. I'm not sure anymore. Because after that, the night started changing. A little after 3:25 a.m., I was at the return station processing an old DVD player someone had dropped off earlier. The scanner beeped twice, then kicked back a red alert. Item recalled, incident, fire. That was odd. Returns rarely flag like that, especially for electronics that old. I tapped the screen again, same message. I flipped the unit over. It looked fine, a little dusty, but no visible damage. The return slip said, "Didn't play discs." That was it. Curious, I pulled out my phone and tried to scan the barcode online. Nothing, not even a product match. That's when I felt it, the change in pressure, like the air had thickened slightly. It's hard to explain unless you've felt it before. It's not fear exactly, but it's close, like something wants to be noticed. At 3:45, I saw him. Tall, thin, gray coat, silent. He walked past the frozen section toward hardware. Not unusual on its own. We get people wandering around late all the time. But he never touched a cart, never picked anything up. He just moved through the aisles, slow and deliberate. I called out, "Sir, need help finding something?" He didn't even flinch. It was like he wasn't really there. Or like I wasn't. A few minutes later, I turned the corner near tools and couldn't see him anymore. No footsteps, no sound, just quiet. By 4:10, I was in the back near the manager's office unloading a heavy pallet, dropped my box cutter and bent down to grab it. That's when I saw them, muddy footprints, not dusty, wet, fresh. They trailed from the hallway right into the staff break room. That door was always locked at night. I hesitated. Then slowly, I keyed in the code and pushed it open. No one inside. I stepped in, heart pounding. No sound, no movement. I turned back, and the footprints were gone. Gone. As if they'd never been there. I tried to calm myself down. Told myself maybe someone got in and left. Maybe the floor was wet and I just didn't see it fade. Maybe I was overtired. All the rational things you reach for when your brain wants to scream. But the memory was tugging at something. Something I'd heard years ago. It came back in pieces. A story shared during onboarding by a girl named Jen, who used to work produce. She said a guy had died in the store years ago. Not publicly. Quietly. A fire in the back room. Electrical, she thought, said he was called Clyde. According to her, his nameplate was found partially melted to the concrete near the junction box, but management denied it, said there was never a Clyde on record. She told me it like a joke, one of those creepy urban legends every old store has. I never really thought about it after that. But now, something about that name clung to me like static. I went to the electrical hall. Don't ask me why. It was quiet there. Too quiet. I didn't see anything, but I swear to you, the light in that hallway flickered once, just once, like a nod. At 5 a.m. I clocked out. Early. Ralph was managing that night. He looked at me when I walked up to the counter, didn't ask a thing, just nodded like he already knew. I got home, collapsed on my bed, and pulled the receipt from my back pocket. I hadn't looked at it since. But something had changed. Just beneath the total, in tiny shaky script. You forgot to scan out, Casey. The next day I quit. No 2 weeks, no shift coverage, just walked in, dropped my badge in the box and left. Packed up what I had, called my cousin up in Colorado Springs, and asked if the spare room was still available. She didn't even ask why, just said yes. I haven't been back to Owasso since. Sometimes I tell myself it was a stress response, a hallucination, lack of sleep and leftover anxiety. I've read enough articles to know how memory and fear mess with the brain. But sometimes, around 3:27 a.m., I wake up in a cold sweat, heart hammering. No dreams. Just the hum of fluorescent lights in my ears. And I swear, some nights, when I open the drawer beside my bed, I find that receipt again. Same folds, same yellowed paper, only the date at the top is different, and it's always today. When your body tells you something is wrong, believe it. Not everything unexplainable is untrue. Some places don't want to be forgotten, and some names never really leave the system. Some days stay with you in full color, not just in memory but in sound, in heat, in the sticky taste of the air. I was only 9 the day it happened, but I still remember everything. The slap of my sneakers on the waxed floor, the freezing wall of air blasting from the freezer section, my sister Lila's music bleeding through her earbuds, too loud for comfort, and most of all, I remember the man's eyes, the way he looked at me like I was already his. It was July 11th, 2011. Funny how the boring days are the ones that bend into something else. Lila had taken me to Walmart that afternoon, not because she wanted to, she was 16 and allergic to errands, but 7-Eleven was doing free Slurpees that day, and I begged. It became our quiet tradition, one of the few days each year she didn't argue about taking me out. I think she liked it more than she admitted. Maybe not the store, but the ritual, the sugar, the AC, the excuse to get out of the house. We walked through the entrance past the rows of gumball machines and the guy spraying carts with a half-empty bottle of cleaner. Lila had one earbud in and her phone out, scrolling like usual. She sighed as we passed the snack aisle. "You better not make me chase you around the store again, Josh," she said, bumping me with her elbow. "I'm not in the mood to play mall cop today." "Not today," I promised, grinning. "I'm being mature now. Almost 10, remember?" She rolled her eyes but smirked. I loved when I could make her smile. It meant I was doing something right. We turned down aisle 7, the freezer section humming like a giant refrigerator. I was swinging my backpack, pretending it was a lightsaber when we saw her, an old woman in a pale pink sweater, trying to steady her cart. Inside, a small white dog poked its head out, a puffball with shiny black eyes. "Would you mind watching him just for a moment?" she asked, her voice soft and polite. "Take him into the restroom. He gets anxious if he's alone." "I can't." I looked at Lila. She looked at me. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. "I got him." She raised an eyebrow. "Okay, Mr. Maturity, stay right here. I'll be back in 5. She walked off toward the granola bars. I knelt beside the dog, scratched behind his ears. "Buddy." His collar said Buddy. He licked my hand once, then settled into the cart like he trusted me. It felt weirdly nice, like I had a job to do. I don't know how long it was before the man came. I didn't hear his footsteps. I just looked up, and there he was. Mid-40s, maybe older. Baseball cap low, dark stubble, hoodie even though it was 100 degrees outside. Something about him made my throat tighten. "Cute dog," he said, crouching to my eye level. "Yours?" I shook my head. "Your mom shopping?" I looked toward the end of the aisle. "My sister." He glanced around. "She left you here alone?" I didn't answer. Something in my chest told me not to. His hand reached for the cart handle. "Why don't you come with me, just real quick?" And then Lila's voice exploded from behind him. "Hey!" It was the kind of voice that made people freeze. I think that's what scared him off more than anything. Not just the shout, but the force of it. Lila came running down the aisle, hair flying, Slurpee in one hand and car keys in the other. Her cheeks were flushed, not from heat, but from fury. The man straightened up quickly. "Didn't mean anything," he said, backing off. "Just saying hi." He turned and disappeared fast, blending into a cluster of shoppers headed toward checkout. Lila rushed over, grabbing my arm. "You okay?" she asked, eyes wide. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I was. "What did he say?" "He asked about you. Said I should go with him." Her jaw clenched. "We're leaving." She grabbed the cart, Buddy still calm like nothing had happened, and we made a beeline toward the front of the store. I kept turning around, scanning the aisles behind us. My heart was pounding like I'd just finished gym class. I couldn't make sense of what had just happened. Was he joking? Was he serious? Why me? We turned the corner near self-checkout, and there he was again, leaning against a magazine rack, watching us. He didn't speak, didn't smile, just stared. One hand in his hoodie pocket, the other resting on a display rack of chewing gum. Calm, like he was waiting for something, like we were the ones interrupting him. "Josh," Lila whispered, her voice tight. "Stay behind me." Before either of us could move, we heard a voice behind us, quieter, confused. "Oh dear, what's going on?" It was the woman, Mrs. Lynette. She'd returned, her sweater sleeves rolled up slightly, her expression puzzled. Lila opened her mouth, but before any words came out, the man turned and walked away. Not hurried, not ashamed, just gone. I never saw him again. We told the front-end supervisor what happened. She called a manager. They paged security. A guy named Craig came up from the back room, took notes, then told Lila it was probably a misunderstanding. Nothing actionable. "But he tried to grab my brother," she said. "There's no proof of that," Craig answered. "Something, or someone. It's complicated. We'll review the footage, but unless he actually took that word stuck with me. Complicated." We left not long after. Lila was quiet on the drive. I sat in the passenger seat, sipping what was left of my Slurpee, watching the trees blur past the window. She didn't play music. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then, as we pulled into our driveway, she reached across the center console and took my hand. "You did good," she said. "Next time, don't talk to anyone, okay?" I nodded. I didn't. Not really. "You did good," she said again. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying the moment. His eyes, the way his hand reached for the cart, the calmness of it all. I wasn't even sure if I had imagined it until Lila knocked on my door around midnight and asked, "You okay?" I was better because she asked. Years went by. We never talked about that day much, but it shaped me more than I understood at the time. I stopped wandering off in stores. I started watching people more closely. I started recognizing the way danger doesn't always announce itself. It moves quietly, like someone reaching for a cart in broad daylight, with a smile and a soft voice. Lila went to college, moved across the state, but we stayed close. She always picked up my calls. Still does. I heard later that others had reported strange encounters at that Walmart and others nearby. Similar descriptions, mid-40s, hoodie, always near kids, but nothing ever came of it. No arrests, no follow-up, just stories. That's the thing about shadows. They pass through lives, barely touching the ground, never leaving enough behind to catch. But if you saw one, really saw one, you never forget. Danger doesn't always wear a mask or raise its voice. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it whispers. Trust your instincts. Speak up. And never assume someone else is watching, because sometimes you're the only one standing between what is and what could have been. Long before I knew fear by name, I knew exhaustion. It had a shape, like blue fluorescent lights flickering over cracked linoleum. It smelled like spoiled yogurt and pine-scented cleaner. It tasted like burnt coffee from a shared break room pot that no one ever cleaned. Exhaustion was what held my hand most nights at the Walmart Supercenter in Yuma, Arizona. Not fear, not yet. When I moved back to Yuma after the divorce, I wasn't looking for peace, just stability. Maya, my daughter, was 10 and too quiet for her age. She was already starting to draw monsters with huge black eyes and names like Watcher or the Still Man. I thought it was just her way of processing the move. I didn't read into it. I was too busy balancing bills, deadlines, and night shifts that paid slightly more than minimum wage. That's how I ended up in the graveyard shift at Walmart. It let me pack lunches in the morning and braid Maya's hair before school. That meant something. It was Thursday night, technically Friday morning, 11:47 p.m. when it started. The store had its usual hum, a mix of buzzing lights, occasional intercoms, and distant beeps from someone scanning inventory. I was restocking motor oil in aisle 15 when I heard it. A slow, dragging step followed by a limp. I didn't look at first. You learn not to overreact in this job. Drunks come in late. Homeless folks wander the aisles for warmth. Teenagers dare each other to knock things over. That's the graveyard shift, an hourglass world where time runs sideways and people forget how to behave. But when I glanced over, I saw him. Tall, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Thin face under a baseball cap pulled low. One brown shoe, one black sneaker, no cart, no basket. Just a faded customer return slip in one hand, creased like he'd been clutching it too long. "You work here every night?" he asked without meeting my eyes. I nodded. "Usually. Need help finding something?" "No, just looking," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "At people?" I smiled tightly, like you do when something feels wrong but you don't want to admit it. Then I walked away, back to the break room, texting Tori on the way. "Got a weird one in auto aisle, mismatched shoes." She replied 2 minutes later. "As long as he ain't yelling, let him wander." That's how we handled things on the night crew. Keep it moving. Stay in your lane. I didn't sleep well that day. Not because of him exactly. Just a weird itch in my spine. A gut feeling. I hadn't trusted those in a long time. Not since the custody hearing. Not since Maya drew me a picture of a faceless man standing outside her window, and I chalked it up to an overactive imagination. The next night he was back. Same shoes, same limp. Just watching again. No interaction with other shoppers. No groceries, Nothing. You look like you worry a lot, he said as I passed by. Excuse me? I stopped mid-step. That's a mother thing, right? He added, eyes fixed on the shelf of brake fluid. Always worrying. I felt something cold twist in my chest. I hadn't worn my War One Mom hoodie. I wasn't wearing my lanyard with the keychain Maya made out of beads. I hadn't said a word about her. How do you know I'm a mother? I asked. He didn't answer, just smiled, then turned away, dragging that limp down to seasonal clearance. I called Maya on my lunch break. Everything good, honey? I asked, pretending it was a casual check-in. She yawned. Yeah, I'm drawing. Can I stay up till midnight? Only if the monsters help clean up, I joked. She laughed. I didn't. That night, I started locking the back door at work, even though policy said it had to remain accessible. I started checking my car twice before leaving. That was when the real fear began, not from something loud or sudden, but from the feeling that I'd already been seen, already been chosen. You learn to live with fear like it's a cracked tooth, always there, throbbing when you chew on the wrong side. By the third night, I started noticing little things. A light in the employee restroom left on when I swore I turned it off. A sticky note on my locker door that read, "Smile," written in shaky, childlike handwriting. Nothing criminal, nothing actionable, just wrong. Tori rolled her eyes when I brought it up. Since Halloween. Probably a joke. Brad's been pulling dumb pranks. You think Brad left a broken doll inside my locker? I asked. She hesitated. A doll? Yeah, little thing. Blonde hair, missing an eye. Wrapped in masking tape. Tori said nothing for a long second. Then, returns box might have spilled. Just toss it. But I didn't toss it. I wrapped it in 2 plastic bags and threw it into the outside dumpster myself. Then I drove home faster than usual, checking my mirrors the whole way. At home, Maya was asleep with her nightlight on. Soft pink glow across her sketches taped to the wall. I stood in her doorway for too long, listening to her breathe. I needed that sound to anchor me. Then it got worse. I found the note on my 4th shift that week. Folded tight and slid into the vent slot on my locker. You left the light on in her room. I turned it off for you. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, reading those words over and over, numb as my heart turned to ice. I bolted. No clock out. No explanation. I drove home on muscle memory, praying to a God I hadn't spoken to since 2019. When I opened Maya's door, she stirred. The lamp was off, completely unplugged. She mumbled something in her sleep. What? I whispered. The man with the wrong shoes, she said. My knees buckled. I slept on the floor beside her bed that night, hand on her mattress, eyes wide open. Every creak of the walls, every passing car outside made my stomach clench. The cops came the next day. I showed them the note. They shrugged. No cameras in the locker room, no fingerprints, no clear footage of the man. He'd never paid for anything. He didn't register on any transaction logs. He may not even be breaking any laws, the officer said. Home, there's not much we can do. Unless he physically enters your. So I changed the locks, borrowed money I didn't have, installed cameras outside, bought pepper spray. Then I called in sick. One day, then another, then a full week. But that didn't stop the dreams or the smell. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and swear I could smell the Walmart break room, pine-scented bleach and microwaved soup. And I'd hear the sound of mismatched footsteps echoing down the hall. Limp, drag, limp, drag. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was inside my head. I officially quit 2 weeks after that note. No dramatic exit, no yelling at corporate. Just a signed resignation form left on Tori's desk and a quiet walk to my car. It was still dark out when I drove away for the last time. I didn't tell Maya why. She just knew I was around more, making her pancakes in the morning, helping with school projects, remembering what day she had art class. The freelance admin work I picked up didn't pay much, but it kept us afloat. Barely. The thing about fear is, it doesn't die when the threat disappears. It lingers, like smoke after a fire, like the hum of fluorescent lights after you've turned them off. Even when nothing's wrong, everything still feels off. I kept checking the footage from our doorbell camera. I started carrying a box cutter in my purse. Every creak in the duplex made me pause, but the man never came back. Not that I saw, until I saw someone limping outside the Dollar General parking lot. It was January. The sun had just gone down and Maya was home with her cousin while I grabbed toilet paper and laundry detergent. The store was nearly empty. I was walking toward my car when I heard it. That rhythm I'd come to dread. Limp, drag, limp, drag. I froze by the trunk. A man was crossing behind the lot, tall, bent slightly forward, with a limp so distinct it made my stomach drop. 2 mismatched shoes, again, one brown, one black. I ducked into my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking as I reversed out of the space. The man didn't look at me, just kept walking. Could have been someone else. Probably was. But I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, waiting for a creak in the hallway that never came. The next morning I bought thick blackout curtains. I stopped letting Maya walk home from school. I changed our Wi-Fi name and password and even replaced the router. Like that could somehow sever whatever invisible thread connected us to him. But the worst part? I started blaming myself. Not for what happened, but for letting him get that close. For not noticing sooner. For answering his first question with a nod instead of walking away. For not taking my instincts seriously when it still felt like nothing. That's what predators feed on. The moment of doubt. The hesitation. The desire to keep things polite. And I gave it to him. There's a stretch of time that happens after the fear subsides, but before peace sets in, where you live like you're waiting for something. I lived in that place for months. Every routine became a ritual. Check locks, close curtains, walk the perimeter, call Maya at 3:05 exactly if she wasn't through the door yet. Tori texted once in March. Thought you might want to know. They found a guy sleeping in the auto section bathroom, left behind a crumpled return slip and a doll head. I didn't reply. A few weeks later, I passed someone at a bus stop wearing a familiar jacket. My chest clenched, my breath caught in my throat, but it was a teenager, just a kid. I smiled at him, like I used to smile at strangers before I learned better. He looked startled. Then he looked scared. That's when it hit me. I looked like him now. Paranoid, tight, quietly unwell. I had inherited his posture. Maya drew a picture that night of a woman and her daughter walking together. The woman had big dark circles under her eyes. The girl was smiling, holding her mom's hand. The caption under the drawing said, "Safe now." But I didn't feel safe. I felt unfinished, like my body had left the Walmart, but some part of my brain was still clocked in, stocking fear on invisible shelves. Sometimes I thought about going back, not to work, just to see if he was still there. But I couldn't bring myself to. I knew what I'd find. Nothing. That was the worst part. He wasn't chasing me. He wasn't knocking on the windows or trying to get in. He'd already done what he came to do, and left. I read somewhere that trauma doesn't change you all at once. It rewires you one moment at a time. One creak, one smell, one shadow too close behind. Years from now, Maya will probably forget the lamp ever being unplugged. She'll forget the night I made her sleep in the living room with the TV on. She'll forget how tightly I gripped her hand walking home from school even after I said we were okay. But I won't forget, because I saw what it looks like when fear puts on a human face. I saw the quiet satisfaction of someone who doesn't want to hurt you, just wants you to know he could. And that's worse in some ways. I still check the ends of aisles when I go shopping. I don't wear name tags anymore, even on video calls. I keep a crowbar under the driver's seat of my car. Maya asked me once what I'd do if the bad man came back. I told her we'd leave. But the truth is, we already did. The Emily who worked those late shifts is gone. She stayed there, somewhere between aisle 15 and the break room, next to the fluorescent lights and broken dolls. And now I watch. I see everything. I notice the man who stands too long near the kids' shoes, the woman with bruises half covered by makeup, the boy who flinches when someone raises their voice. I see them, because I was them. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be the reason someone else gets out before it's too late. Not all monsters want to harm you. Some just want to remind you they exist. But your instincts exist for a reason. Trust them. Fear doesn't always wear claws or scream in the night. Sometimes it limps quietly behind you in the cereal aisle. The real danger isn't what a stranger might do. It's what they convince you not to do in time. You don't owe anyone your comfort, not your smile, not your politeness, not your silence. I used to think being alone was safe. There's a kind of comfort in silence when nobody's asking you questions, when nobody needs anything from you. That's what I thought I needed after dropping out of art school, drowning in debt, and failing to keep it all together in Boston. I came back to Maine with a half-broken laptop and enough regret to sink a town. Bangor wasn't exactly inspiring, but I found work fast. Night shift stocker at the local Walmart supercenter. It didn't pay much, but it kept the lights on in my tiny apartment. I liked the hours. It was quiet, dim. People left you alone. You didn't have to fake smiles when the world was sleeping. That's how I ended up there on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023, a night that made the lonely feel lonelier. I clocked in at 10:30 p.m. sharp. Snow was piled up in the corners of the lot. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like they always did, giving everything that sterile, mechanical glow. I worked snacks and drinks, aisle 22, just me in the fridges, the soft clink of cans, the occasional walkie-talkie chatter from the front. Mr. Kenny, the janitor, was buffing the floors out by the deli. He always hummed these old 80s songs under his breath like the soundtrack of a life better lived. Around 12:10 a.m., I looked up while restocking one of the coolers and saw someone, just standing, down at the end of the aisle. Tall man in a heavy army green coat, arms crossed, black beanie pulled down tight. I blinked. Gone. Didn't hear him walk off. Didn't hear the door. Just wasn't there anymore. I figured maybe it was Kenny messing around. But when I passed by later, he was out by the loading dock cleaning a spill. Alone. Didn't say a word about seeing anyone, and I didn't say a word to him. Not yet. Around 1:20 a.m., I stepped outside for my break. I always took it alone out near the curb where the streetlights barely reached. I liked it quiet like that. The air burned in my lungs, but it felt cleaner than anything inside. I was sipping a Mountain Dew, just zoning out when I saw the truck, parked way out in the corner of the lot in the dark where the cameras barely reached. Engine off, headlights off. But someone was sitting inside, still, too still. I tried to shake it off, but my pulse was already spiking. "You good?" Kenny asked, stepping out behind me with his cigarette already lit. "Yeah, just tired," he exhaled. "That truck's been there a while." I turned to him. "You saw it too?" He nodded. "Or watching." "Didn't pull in on my shift, just sitting there. Looks like he's waiting for someone." We stood there for a second, not saying much. Then Kenny shrugged, muttered something about weirdos, and went back in. I stayed out for another 2 minutes trying to convince myself it wasn't what it felt like. But deep down, I knew better. Back inside, everything felt wrong. The freezer doors reflected shadows that weren't there. I kept hearing things, footsteps behind me that stopped when I turned. I checked my phone's camera just to see if anything was behind me. Nothing but stale air and stacked soda. But I couldn't shake the feeling, like someone had marked me. At 2:05 a.m., the store phone rang in the back. No one else around, so I picked it up. Static. Breathing. And then, stalking alone tonight? Click. I dropped the receiver. Just let it dangle there for a second while I stared at the wall like it might explain something. But of course it didn't. Phones don't answer questions, they just ring. I found Kenny right away and told him everything. "Someone's screwing with you," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. We went to the security monitor in the back office and started scanning the feeds. The loading dock? Empty. The fire exits? Empty. Parking lot? The truck wasn't there anymore, just an empty space where it had been. No face on camera, just a weird flicker, a blur, static. I clocked out early. Tori wasn't even there that night, just texted me approval. I didn't waste time. Grabbed my coat, didn't even change shoes, just left. The snow was still thick and the wind bit through my jacket, but I walked fast. I just wanted to be inside my car, engine on, doors locked. The lot was almost empty now. Just a few sedans by the far end. I felt a rush of relief when I saw the truck was gone. Maybe it was nothing. I pulled open the door and slid in, still jittery, still scanning the mirrors. Then I looked at the passenger seat. One single Mountain Dew can. Ice cold, unopened. Same brand I'd stocked, same flavor I drank every night. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. I just locked the doors, shoved the can into the glove box, and drove home like something was chasing me. I didn't go back the next night, or the one after. When my manager called, I said I wasn't feeling well. She asked if I'd need a doctor's note. I said I'd send it. I didn't. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table staring at that can, still cold even after hours out of the fridge. I couldn't explain it. Nobody had my keys. My car doesn't have remote entry. I check the doors every time. I live alone. No roommates, no prankster friends, no ex to mess with me. And I hadn't spoken to a soul about the truck, not even on social media. But someone had been close enough to leave that can. Close enough to know. I moved apartments within a month. Paid the penalty to break my lease. Found a place across town in a complex with gated access and cameras in every hallway. I got a security system. Put bars on the windows. Started sleeping with a baseball bat by the bed. I switched to a morning shift at a bookstore downtown. Small staff. Windows everywhere. I started feeling normal again. Sort of. Until one night, pulling into the grocery store lot near my new place, I saw it again. A truck. Parked just far enough away. Facing me. Not moving. I didn't stay. I backed out and kept driving. Sometimes I think about that voice on the phone. Not the words, not the tone, but what it meant. He wasn't asking me anything. He wasn't curious. He already knew. And now I live like he's still out there. Like he left a trail of soda cans and shadows just far enough behind me to make me question whether I've outrun him at all. That's the trick, right? The worst kind of fear isn't loud. It doesn't scream, it waits. It hides in parking lots. It leaves things behind that you recognize. It makes sure you see it. Then it disappears before anyone else can. Sometimes I think I see him in reflections, in taillights, in window glass. But when I turn, there's nothing there. And that's the point. He never had to hurt me. He just had to show me he could. That's all it took to make the world feel small and cold and unsafe again. And if he's still out there, he knows exactly what he did. Fear doesn't need a weapon. Sometimes all it needs is access. A locked door, a phone call, a can in the passenger seat. We think the world is too public to be unsafe, too bright to be watched. But predators don't always chase. Sometimes they just wait. And if you don't listen to that voice in your gut, the one that tightens your throat when something's off, you'll talk yourself out of protecting yourself until it's too late. Trust your instincts, don't ignore the shadows, and never assume you're alone just because no one's answering you back. It's funny how something completely ordinary can become the start of something you'll never forget. That night didn't feel special. If anything, It felt exactly like what I needed. Something small, familiar, and unremarkable. I'd been drowning in clinical hours, textbooks, and caffeine-fueled anxiety at nursing school in Austin. So when Danny texted that she and her new roommate Jordan were grabbing some stuff from Walmart and then heading to her place for a movie, I figured why not. I was home for the weekend anyway. Might as well feel normal for a few hours. We met in the parking lot of the Lubbock Walmart, just off Loop 289. It was a little after 8 p.m., the sky already dark but still warm, one of those sticky late summer nights where everything feels on pause. Danny hugged me like we hadn't just talked the week before. She looked the same, messy bun, ripped jeans, too much eyeliner. Jordan was new, tall, lean, with an ironic smirk that never quite left her face. She nodded hello but didn't say much at first. "We're just grabbing popcorn and crap," Danny said, bouncing slightly on her heels. "The Halloween section. You still like those dumb skull candles?" "Maybe hit guilty," I said, laughing. Inside, the store was weirdly quiet for a Friday. Not empty, but hushed. The lights in the entryway flickered a little. Jordan cracked a joke about haunted Walmart videos, and Danny rolled her eyes. "You two are such freaks," she said, already steering us toward the home goods section. That's when we saw him. He wore a gray Walmart vest but no name tag. Early 40s maybe. Tall, with thinning hair and a half smile that lingered just a little too long. Something about the way he moved, calm but not relaxed, put me on edge. "You ladies looking for anything specific?" he asked. "Just browsing," Danny said, already distracted by a display of LED jack-o'-lanterns. "You should come check out the new clearance candles. Just stocked them in the back. Real good deals." Jordan gave a sideways grin. "Back room for candles? You really expect us to follow a guy with no name badge into a..." He laughed. "Fair enough, but you'll regret it when the good ones are gone." It was the way he said it, not flirty, just overly confident, like he already knew we were coming. Danny shrugged. "Cinnamon-scented wax melts? Come on, Jess, we're three of us. What's he gonna do? Sell us too many?" I hesitated. I don't know why, but something in my gut twisted. Still, I didn't want to be the boring one, so I followed. He led us past the gardening section, past the break room door, down a corridor that felt darker than the rest of the store. I whispered to Danny, "He doesn't even have a badge." "Relax," she said, "out of weird corners all the time. It's just the back room. My cousin used to work here. They do clearance stuff." Then we stepped through a side door, and it slammed shut behind us. The sound of the door locking was unmistakable. It was heavy, steel maybe, and final. I turned on my heel instantly. No handle on the inside, just a cold metal plate. "What the hell?" Jordan said, already checking her phone. "No service." The room was small, about the size of a storage closet. Shelves lined one wall, but they were empty. On the other side were locked metal cages stacked with broken-down cardboard boxes. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, flickering just enough to make the shadows seem alive. "Where's the clearance section?" Danny asked, trying to play it off like it was still a joke. Then we heard the man's voice, through the crack in the door, muffled but clear. "Won't take long. Just don't move too much." Then the footsteps walked away. I froze. What the hell does that mean? Jordan stepped forward and started pounding on the door. "People in here." "Hey, let us out. You can't lock, no answer." "Danny, tell me this is a prank," I whispered. She shook her head slowly. No, this is not a prank." We tried calling again. My phone flickered between no signal and one tiny bar. Jordan tried hers. Same thing. "Okay," I said, trying to breathe. "We just need to keep calm. Someone will notice we're gone." The air was warm, close, the kind of air that feels like it's pressing in on you. Every breath took more effort than the last. Then we heard it. A dragging sound. Something scraping across the floor outside the door. Slow, uneven. We all fell silent. "Is he still out there?" Danny whispered. Jordan shook her head. That's not walking. That's something else. It stopped right outside. Then silence. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I sent a voice message to my mom. We're locked in a room at Walmart. I don't feel safe. Please call someone. The light above us dimmed again. Then, complete darkness. When that light went out, something in me snapped. I couldn't breathe. I dropped to the floor, trying not to cry, trying not to scream. Jordan pulled out her phone flashlight. The beam flickered but held. "This is insane," she said, her voice tight. "This is beyond creepy. This is criminal." Danny crouched next to me, holding my hand. I hadn't even realized I was shaking. "Hey," she whispered. "We're gonna get out of here, okay? He's not gonna get away with this." But the room didn't care about our hope. It pressed on us like a sealed jar. Time didn't feel real in there. Jordan tried prying open the door with a broken shelf hook. It didn't budge. She started pacing, muttering crime scene facts under her breath like a shield. Back exits. There's always more than one. OSHA standards. There's gotta be. Something scratched at the door again. Not a knock. Not a footstep. Just one long metallic scrape. Like a key. Or worse, a knife. "No," I whispered. "We can't just sit here and wait. We need to do something." Jordan turned her flashlight toward the ceiling. "There," she said, pointing. "That panel. Maybe it's a crawl space." She stacked a few broken boxes and climbed up, pushing the panel open. Dust rained down, but nothing useful. Just pipes. Then, click. The door creaked open. All three of us froze. There was no one there. The hallway beyond was lit, flickering again. We didn't wait. We ran. I don't remember what I screamed. I know I screamed something. I know my legs were burning from running down that narrow hall, past break rooms and supply closets. We exploded into the main store like survivors. An employee at the customer service desk looked up, confused. "You girls okay?" We were babbling. "Locked in?" Employee. "No badge." Back room. They didn't know who we were talking about. No one named Ray. No one in a gray vest had clocked in. "No, you don't get it," Jordan said, her voice rising. He knew the layout. "He was in the system, right?" He had keys. A manager came over, calm, but visibly tense. We showed him the door. He looked confused. "That section's not even part of the current floor plan. That's supposed to be sealed for renovations. We demanded they call the police." They did. The footage showed us entering the back hallway. Then static. 43 minutes of blackout. No Ray, no dragging, no open door. Just 3 terrified girls and one impossible room. After that night, everything changed. I stopped coming home. Danny moved in with her aunt in El Paso. Jordan never spoke about it again. She dropped out of school 2 months later. The police never found anything. Walmart corporate filed it as unsubstantiated trespassing. But sometimes I still hear that scraping sound. In dreams. In the middle of a quiet grocery store. Every time a light flickers above me, I stop breathing for a second. People ask why I don't shop at Walmart anymore. I tell them I just prefer Target. But the truth is, what happened that night wasn't about ghosts or demons. It was about how close danger can get, how easy it is to smile at a stranger, follow them into a hallway and vanish. That man, he wasn't supernatural. He was something worse. He was real. Trust your instincts, even when it feels inconvenient or embarrassing. Fear isn't weakness. It's wisdom learned through survival. Always listen to that quiet voice that says, something isn't right. It might just save your life. I've worked in retail long enough to stop expecting surprises. You hit a certain number of years in a Walmart uniform, and you learn to take things as they come, no matter how strange, uncomfortable, or flat-out gross. You build a filter in your brain that tunes out screaming toddlers, broken pickle jars, awkward shoplifters stuffing deli meat into jackets. But April 6, 2024, broke that filter wide open. I'd been with the Missoula neighborhood market for almost a decade. Floor supervisor. Nothing fancy. I don't wear a tie, just a dark blue vest and a name tag that's chipped at the corner. Most days, I handle scheduling conflicts, help unload pallets, and make sure no one stocks canned peas where the corn should go. It's not glamorous. It's not supposed to be. That afternoon started like any other. I was showing a new hire, Casey Bell, how to rotate soup labels, basic zone maintenance. Casey was a cheerful kid, studying early childhood education part-time and always cracking dumb produce puns. That kind of earnest energy you hope stays intact. It was just after 1:40 p.m. when a customer tapped me on the shoulder. Middle-aged guy in a fishing cap. Quiet voice. "There's a woman in frozen foods," he said, eyes darting around. "Doors. She's..." licking the glass. Now, I've had weird things reported to me before. Naked toddlers in garden, someone mistaking chicken bouillon for cough drops, a guy trying to sell rabbits in the parking lot. But licking freezer doors was new. I excused myself and headed over. She was there all right, standing in front of the frozen peas, barefoot, staring so intently at the glass it looked like she expected it to open on its own. Clothes mismatched. An oversized shirt turned inside out, sleeves rolled awkwardly. Her jeans were wet around the cuffs like she'd walked through melted snow, and her nails, black with dirt, chipped at the edges. I approached slowly. "Ma'am, can I help you find something?" She didn't answer, didn't even blink. She whispered something under her breath, soft, rasped. "Iron. I need iron." Then she leaned forward and gently knocked her head against the freezer door. Just once. And then again. I signaled Casey, who had been zoning down near drinks. "Hey," I called quietly. "Stand near soda. Keep folks from coming down this way for a minute." He nodded, expression puzzled. I turned back toward her. "Ma'am, you okay? Do you need a chair or medical help? We can call someone." She suddenly snatched a frozen bag of spinach off the shelf and tore it open with her teeth, like she was starving. The sound of her chewing echoed louder than it should have. I took a cautious step forward. "Please don't do that, okay? Let's step away from the..." She lunged, fingernails sharp, hands swinging. I backed off instinctively, arms up, but she caught my forearm, scratching deep. Casey dropped his clipboard and yelled. I grabbed her shoulder, trying to push her back, keep things from escalating. She fell into a cart, muttering something I couldn't quite catch. It was the way she looked at me that stopped me cold. Not angry, not scared, just empty. My forearm stung where she scratched me, but it wasn't the pain that set my pulse climbing. It was the look in her eyes, distant, like she wasn't entirely in the same world as the rest of us. Casey hovered nearby, unsure of whether to move in or call someone. I held a hand up to keep him back. "I'm okay," I muttered, more to myself than to him. The woman had dropped to her knees by the end cap display. Her fingers darted toward a small, shrink-wrapped box of nails. Roofing nails, those little flat-headed silver things that clink when you shake the box. She ripped the package open with her teeth. I froze. "Ma'am, stop. Please don't..." She shoved 2 nails into her mouth and bit down. The sound was sickening, metal on enamel. A crack. Blood trickled from her gums. "Iron," she muttered. "My blood is empty." Casey screamed. That high-pitched, panicked kind of scream that cuts through the air like a blade. I lunged forward and grabbed her wrist, trying to keep her from swallowing. She thrashed, jaw clamped shut. Her mouth foamed with saliva and blood. And then, she bit me, right at the base of the thumb. Deep. The pain was white-hot, sharp enough to blur my vision. "Call 911, I hissed through clenched teeth. Casey pulled out his phone, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. The woman backed away from me, collapsing beside the shelf. She was sobbing now, holding a can of beans to her chest like it was a baby. "Don't want to eat people," she said between gasps. keep us quiet. Just need to taste metal. That's how they... What the hell did that mean? I staggered back, clutching my hand. My brain was moving too slow to keep up. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us like insects. Customers peeked around corners now. A few were filming. Of course they were. This was the world we lived in. Witnessing trauma through a screen while someone bled on the floor. Officer Ryan showed up 8 minutes later. He'd been to the store before. Domestic arguments in produce. A meth head trying to open beer cans with his belt buckle in the snack aisle. But this was new even for him. He moved carefully, hands visible, voice low and calm. She didn't resist when they let her out. Didn't speak either. Just sobbed, still clutching the can of beans. Paramedics looked me over. The bite wasn't deep, but the skin was torn and red. I got my tetanus shot that evening. 3 stitches. Casey had already been sent home. He'd had a full-on panic attack behind the pharmacy counter. Sat down and refused to talk. I stayed. Someone had to fill out the report. Someone had to talk to corporate. Later that night, we learned more. She'd been living out of her car in the back corner of the lot. A beat-up sedan with expired tags. The interior was lined with grocery receipts, taped to the windows, folded under the seats. No ID, no license, no phone, just a spiral notebook filled with frantic writing. Over and over. Iron keeps them out. Iron keeps me real. She wasn't arrested. She was transferred to a mental health facility 2 counties over. There were no follow-up calls, no family contact. No one showed up to ask what happened. It was like she just appeared. Like she'd been living parallel to us this whole time, only barely brushing the surface of our world. And I keep thinking about how long she must have been walking around the store before anyone noticed. How many times she'd slipped past cameras, past clerks, past me. I think about her eyes, the strange, calm logic in what she said. My blood is empty. That's how they keep us quiet. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was just the brain unraveling under stress and cold and hunger. But what if it wasn't? Casey never came back to the sales floor. He was moved to stockroom duties for a week, then stopped showing up altogether. Last I heard, he dropped out of school and moved back home. I kept working. What else do you do? The days go on, new customers, new shipments, new weirdos and breakdowns. But every time I walk past frozen foods, I glance at the glass. Not because I think she's there, because I'm waiting for the next one. Someone like her. Someone slipping. We keep thinking the cracks in the system are small, but they're not. They're wide, and they're everywhere. And what scares me most is this. You never see them until it's already too late. People don't vanish all at once. They disappear slowly, through neglect, fear, and silence. If something feels off, speak, listen, act. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the person acting strange. It's how many people saw it coming and looked away. I was 26 and reeling from loss. Everything I owned destroyed in a trailer fire in Nevada. My clothes, my photos, even my dog, Rex. My girlfriend Lacey and I drove overnight to Amarillo, Texas. We rolled into jumbled light before dawn. Lacey's Aunt Jenny had said we could crash in her 2-bedroom rental near I-40, just behind an old feed store. Jenny barely knew me, but Lacey insisted I deserved a fresh start. I didn't argue. I just needed one place that felt safe. That first morning, close, tired, and fragile, I woke to Lacey's voice. "Let's go to Walmart," she said. "Just get a real bed. I don't care if it's cheap." I had a cracked back from years of construction work and only $120 in savings, but I nodded. If a mattress meant real rest, it was worth it. We drove a few minutes to the massive 24-hour Walmart next to an empty lot and an abandoned Blockbuster building. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed too bright, felt sterile. We browsed sheets and curtains and cheap futons. Then Lacey wandered off. I made my way, on weak legs, heavy in my chest, toward the bedding display tucked near the garden section, far from the noisy front aisles. I leaned on a memory foam twin mattress, staring at my phone. I must have dozed for a moment. When I looked up, a man stood at the end of the aisle, clean jeans, navy baseball cap, and eyes that didn't quite seem alive. He stared at me with a stillness that made my skin crawl. My voice came out soft. "You good, man?" No answer. He didn't move. Just took one slow step forward, which sounded wrong on those rubber sole sneakers. I backed up, spotlighted by the flicker of the garden center lights behind me. In that heartbeat, when the lights dimmed and popped back on, he vanished. I told myself it was paranoia, exhaustion, PTSD. What else? Later, in line at checkout, the same man stood behind us, silent, unblinking. When I turned, he didn't flinch. When the cashier greeted him, he walked off with empty hands. The cashier frowned. "That guy again?" she muttered. "Yeah, wanders around. Never talks. Creeps me out." I let my nails bite down into my palms. We left quickly, loading the mattress and curtain rods into my old sedan in silence. That night at Jenny's, Lacey unpacked bedding while I dragged the mattress in carefully. As I unrolled it, a folded receipt fluttered out, dated 2 days earlier, for the exact same mattress model. A return. My blood ran cold. Sleep evaded me then. Lacey looked at me puzzled. "Did you get up last night?" she asked. I shook my head. She held up a plastic Walmart tag she'd found in the kitchen, dated with a name neither of us knew. Mark E. Lane. We scrolled through Facebook. Nothing. We called the Walmart manager. The item hadn't been in stock for months, discontinued. My heart pounded harder than it had since the fire. I needed answers. I drove back to the store the following afternoon. Outside on the community bulletin board was a yellow missing person poster. Mark Lane, age 33, last seen August 31st at Walmart Supercenter Amarillo. That same navy cap, those clean jeans. That night I lay on the mattress, each breath heavy with dread. I felt an indentation beside me, faint but noticeable, deeper than Lacey's weight could cause. Sleep stayed just out of reach for both of us. In the morning, I loaded that mattress into the back alley and left it there. I came back at dawn. It was gone, but the residue stayed. Day after day, I felt the world shrink. I started feeling watched everywhere I went. At Walmart again, I caught glimpses of that aisle in my mind's eye. The mattress display near the garden section haunted me. I craved normal sleep, but every store mattress section felt alive. At Jenny's house, we tried to return to routine. We cooked spaghetti one afternoon. The smell of tomato sauce and garlic filled the kitchen. I turned to Lacey and forced a smile. She offered support, tried to coax me into talking, but the tension and shame had lodged in my chest. She pulled at the sheets, organizing pillowcases. Every time she snapped a corner tight, my eyes flickered to the edge of the mattress. I couldn't shake the feeling Mark Lane had tried to reach through, to teach me something. 3 weeks in, Lacey broke up with me. Her patience had worn thin. My nerves were frayed. She said she needed space. I couldn't blame her, but her departure felt like abandonment. The tiny symbol of safety, Jenny's house, had become cracked and cold. I moved on, drove to Oklahoma City with what remained of my savings. I found a room in a shared house. No mattress, but an airbed. Less ideal, but safer somehow. Every time I passed a Walmart or a bedding aisle, I felt short of breath, as though someone unseen was watching and waiting. Months passed. I avoided mattress stores, avoided camping sections. When I needed spare sheets or a pillow, I called a friend to go in for me. I told myself I was working through trauma. Therapy helped, though I often found my speech trailing off, my mouth dry, whenever I talked about that mysterious watchman in the aisle. One evening, I watched a true crime documentary. They interviewed people who had disappeared from supermarkets. Stories of return to shelves, odd receipts, items showing up late, a mattress here, a hoodie there. The producers called it retail revenants. Survivors described the same feeling, something hollow and wrong. It felt too real. I sent an email to the Amarillo Walmart manager, politely requesting footage from September 2nd, the night I visited. The response was vague. "We regret we can't release camera footage to individuals. However, we have increased overnight patrols due to customer concerns near the mattress section." That was all. I pictured Mark Lane wandering through aisles at night, the lights flickering overhead, and maybe hoping someone would notice. Tonight, I'm telling you all this because sometimes the world doesn't notice what matters. The ordinary can conceal tragedy. We rush through stores without seeing the silent watcher lurking in the lights. Trauma isn't always loud. It's a quiet tension echoed in a creased receipt dated 2 days too early, a name you've never known, a form pressed into abandoned packaging. I never slept alone in a mattress store again. I don't walk into a Walmart, especially near bedding, without scanning every axis of light, every reflected shadow. The memory of that indentation, the cost tag, the silent man, it doesn't leave me. I moved on with my life. I rebuilt what I could. My back healed. I found stable work. But in the quiet, when lights flicker or bags of chips crinkle in a store, my pulse tightens. I'm reminded, safety is fragile. People disappear quietly. Shadows linger in predictable places. And sometimes when we're trying to start over, we carry something back with us that we can't shake. Trauma often hides in ordinary places. Even the most familiar aisles can carry remnants of loss and unseen presences. Be compassionate, be observant, and remember that someone's unnoticed persistence, someone's incomplete exit, might linger in silence. Look closely, listen deeply, and treat the small signs with care. Long before that day in the garden center, I used to think of myself as someone who could sense danger before it got too close. Maybe that came from being a single mom, or maybe from what my mother used to call a gut that won't shut up. Either way, I'd always taught my daughter to stay close, ask questions, trust her instincts. I did all the things the parenting books say you're supposed to. But that afternoon in August, something slipped. It was a Wednesday, just past 4. We were in Boise, Idaho, trying to make a boring chore feel like an adventure, back to school shopping. My daughter Sadie, just 7, had that excited, caffeinated energy only kids seem to maintain after a full day of summer sun. I was juggling a lukewarm coffee, a list I barely glanced at, and my own constant calculation of how much all this would cost me. We'd been in Walmart for maybe 20 minutes. Shoes were a bust. The pencil packs were ransacked. Sadie asked if she could check the toy aisle. She'd said it like a whisper of hope, and honestly, I needed a second to breathe. "Just one aisle over," I told her. "If I don't see you in 5 minutes, I'm coming over." She nodded and darted off. I stayed in the next aisle, hovering between lunch boxes and anxiety. That's when I heard it. A man's voice, soft, calm, too familiar in tone to be harmless. "There are better ones in the garden center. The ones they don't put on shelves anymore. Want to see?" I froze. Every molecule in my body turned inward, listening. I stepped around the corner and saw him. Sadie was standing a few feet from a man I didn't recognize. He looked to be in his late 30s. Flannel shirt, cargo pants, scruffy hair, and something off about his posture. He had a limp in his left leg, slight but noticeable. I cut in fast. "Sweetie," I said as calmly as I could. "Who's this?" Sadie turned. He said there's better toys outside. The man smiled, not with friendliness, not even menace, just blank. "Old garden stock," he said, backing away slowly. Just showing her the didn't mean to scare anyone. "You work here?" I asked, already knowing the answer. He shook his head. "No, I just come here sometimes. You all have a good day." He turned, without waiting for a response, and walked straight to the back of the store. Then, just before I could shout or move, he slipped through a set of double doors marked "Employees Only." No hesitation, no code, just gone. I grabbed Sadie's hand. My heartbeat wasn't just fast, it was angry. I told the first associate I could find, a teenage girl near the photo booth. She blinked a few times and said, "Ma'am, that door's locked. Needs a badge code." I told her I'd just watched a man limp straight through it without one. Security was called. A shift manager named Tanya showed up with that kind of tired authority you only get after years of working retail hell. I gave her the description, down to the limp, the shirt, even the way he smiled like it was a reflex, not an emotion. They checked the footage while I stood by, holding Sadie's hand tighter than I meant to. I remember her whispering, "He didn't touch me, Mommy. He just talked." But that didn't ease anything. Not for me. The footage showed part of it. Him near the aisle, Sadie just within frame. But his face was blurred by a shelf, and as he walked away, the camera glitched. Not static, not blackout, just skipped a second, like a skipped heartbeat. The moment before he reached the door, then, poof, gone. Tanya leaned over the screen and mumbled, "That's not the first time." I looked at her. "Excuse me?" "We've had people mention someone like that before," she said carefully. "Garden. Never with a kid, though. Just standing around. And then, he's gone. Usually in toys, or I felt something cold crawl up my spine." "You called the police, right?" She hesitated. "We can't unless there's a threat. He didn't do anything technically. I'm sorry, but a strange man trying to lure a child into the back of a store isn't a maybe situation." "I agree," she said quiet. "But this guy, he's never on tape walking in. Never buys anything. And that door's been disabled since last year. We sealed the garden section. It's been out of use since fall." I didn't say anything else. I didn't argue. I just left the cart, walked out with Sadie, and drove home with both hands shaking on the wheel. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face. Not angry, not wild, just empty, like he was rehearsing humanity. I sat on the couch with my laptop, and something about the limp stuck in my brain. I started searching through missing persons reports. I didn't know what I expected, maybe to scare myself even more. Then I found a name, Ray Mullins, missing since April, former Walmart employee. There was a picture. He looked younger in it, more put together, but it was the same frame, same eyes. He'd been fired for inappropriate behavior involving a co-worker's child. And yes, a car accident 3 years ago had left him with a limp. I sat back and stared at the screen like it had slapped me. I called Walmart the next morning. Not customer service, corporate. I gave them the name, told them what I saw, asked if this man could be a former employee. The woman on the other end sounded professional until I said the name. There was a pause. Then, "Ma'am, Ray Mullins died 5 months ago. He was struck by a freight train south of town. Are you sure what you saw wasn't someone else?" "He walked into a sealed door," I said. There was silence, then a click. She hung up. The thing about moments like that, after the adrenaline wears off, you're left with this blank space where certainty used to live. I didn't know what I believed. A dead man in a garden center, a malfunctioning camera. Maybe it was all some elaborate, terrifying coincidence. But Sadie remembered. A week later, she asked me in the car, "Do you think he was trying to hurt me?" I told her no. I said he was confused, that sometimes grown-ups don't know how to talk to kids, but the truth is, I don't know what he wanted. To take her? To lead her somewhere no one comes back from? And the worst part, no one believed it mattered. Not Walmart. Not the cops who filed a non-incident report. Not even the other parents I cautiously brought it up to. But I knew. Something had passed through that store. Something not entirely alive, and definitely not human anymore. I started volunteering at Sadie's school. First aid station, lunchroom monitor. I never let her out of sight now. Not in stores, not at parks, not even at family cookouts. And I always look, at the ends of aisles, near exit doors, anywhere a shadow could lean just out of view. About a month later, I went back to that Walmart, not to shop, just to see. The garden center was chained off. A paper sign hung crooked on the gate. Section closed for renovation. I walked the perimeter slowly. There were plants rotting in pots, empty pallets, dust on the glass. But through the smudged door, I thought I saw something, just for a second. A shape standing between the shelves. Not moving, just watching. When I blinked, it was gone. Of course it was. But I remember the smell that lingered. Damp wood, earth, and something sour. Like something left behind too long. That night, Sadie had a nightmare. She said she dreamed of the toy aisle, of someone calling her name in a voice that wasn't mine. Trust your instincts. Always. The world we live in is crowded, noisy, and full of distractions, but danger doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers from the other side of the aisle. Sometimes it limps. And sometimes it's a man who shouldn't exist walking into a door that no longer opens. Never assume safety just because you're surrounded by people. And never forget, some disappearances happen in plain sight. All it takes is 5 minutes and a moment of looking away. Because not everything that vanishes is forgotten, and not everything that dies stays gone. I hadn't planned to stop in Scranton. Hell, I hadn't planned most of anything after October of that year. Life had come apart fast and all at once, like a plug getting yanked from the wall. My apartment lease in Vermont was up. My job managing a local print shop had vanished after the owner ghosted payroll. Then my girlfriend left. Said I was drifting. She was right, but hearing it out loud still hit harder than I thought it would. I packed what I could into my beat-up Ford Focus, gave my landlord my last $200 and pointed west toward Chicago. My cousin lived there, said I could crash for a while. That was the plan. Chicago or bust. Except the further I got into Pennsylvania, the more busted I felt. I hadn't showered in 2 days. I'd been sleeping with the driver's seat reclined in rest stops, parking lots, even behind a Taco Bell once. I was running low on gas, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd spoken to another human being for more than 30 seconds. Loneliness wasn't creeping in. It had already moved into the passenger seat. When I saw the glowing green Walmart neighborhood market sign off a side road near Scranton, I turned in without thinking. I told myself I needed a phone charger and snacks, but really, I just wanted to walk somewhere that had lights and people and didn't smell like stale hoodie fabric. The parking lot was mostly empty. One white pickup sat near the far pole light, engine off. The store was open until midnight, and it was just shy of 11. The place looked smaller than a usual Walmart, more like a big drugstore, a little neglected. One of the glass doors had a crack running up the middle, like it had taken a hit and never got replaced. Inside it was dim. The fluorescent lights flickered like a dying mood. There was a sour smell, maybe old mop water or the kind of chemical cleaner that masks something worse. A tired-looking guy at the register gave me a nod. A stalker in a hoodie moved boxes in the distance with headphones in. No music playing overhead, no announcements. Just a low, stale silence. I grabbed a cheap USB-C charger off a plastic hook and turned to head for the drink section. That's when I first saw him. A man, tall, average build, beige baseball cap, standing in aisle 9, paper goods, facing the shelves like he was shopping. But something felt off. He wasn't moving. Just positioned there, his body slightly turned into the shelf like he was frozen mid-decision. Only he wasn't deciding. He was just there. I stared for maybe 2 seconds, waiting for him to shift or reach. Nothing. I blinked and kept moving. Told myself not to be weird. Probably just tired. Except when I reached the back coolers, maybe 60 feet from where I'd seen him, I looked up and nearly dropped the soda bottle in my hand. He was there again. Same jacket, same cap, standing by the milk now. Again motionless, again facing the shelves, not quite touching anything. There was no way he could have walked past me without me seeing him. That's when the hairs on my neck stood up. I didn't know what to do exactly. My rational brain kicked in, said maybe there was more than one guy wearing the same clothes. A stalking employee, someone browsing and just weird. But something deep in my chest didn't believe that. The stillness in his posture wasn't casual. It was rigid, like a mannequin that someone had placed to resemble a person, but forgot to animate. I made my way quickly back toward the front. The cashier was leaning on the counter, watching a tiny portable fan spin slowly beside the register. I held up the charger and my soda. "Long night?" I said, trying to sound casual. He looked up. They always are. As he rang me up, I hesitated, then asked, "You got another night stalker here? Guy in a tan cap?" He paused. "Nah, just me and Roman in the back. You see someone?" "Yeah, aisle 9. Paper towels, then again near the milk." I forced a small laugh. He looked like a statue. The cashier gave me a weird look, then leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You're not the first to say that." That threw me. "Say what?" "Guy that looks like he doesn't move. Shows up in 2 places at once, kinda mannequin-ish." I raised an eyebrow. He kept his voice low. "Used to have a guy here, Calvin, graveyard shift. Quiet dude, but reliable. One night he just didn't clock out. Security footage showed him walking into aisle 9. That was it. No exit. Nothing. Just gone. When the morning manager found his vest folded on the floor, right in front of the shelves, they blocked off the aisle, said it was structural damage, but we all knew it wasn't that." "Wait, you're serious?" I asked, trying not to let my voice shake. He nodded. "Every few months someone mentions a guy back there. Same description, same blank posture. You're not the first." I left fast. My body wasn't waiting for my brain to catch up. I rushed through the automatic doors and nearly tripped onto the sidewalk. I tossed my charger into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and started the engine. As I pulled out, I glanced at the entrance. He was standing there, behind the glass. Beige cap. Hands by his sides. Still, watching. I didn't sleep that night. I found a truck stop off the highway, parked near the diesel pumps, and locked my doors. I left the interior light on for an hour before finally forcing myself to close my eyes. When I got to Chicago 2 days later, the encounter still sat in my head like a splinter I couldn't dig out. I crashed on my cousin's couch and tried to pretend like nothing had happened. New city, new start. I even landed a temp gig within a week, warehouse shipping, nights again. It felt familiar. Familiar was comforting. Familiar was also dangerous. Then on the first Sunday I had off, I decided to finally clean out the car. Old coffee cups, crumpled receipts. I popped the trunk and tossed everything into a garbage bag until I saw it. A small roll of receipt paper, sitting in the back seat. Not a printed receipt, an entire roll, like one used in a register. White, thick, lightly yellowed from exposure. At the top, a single line of ink, printed faintly. Return, aisle 9. Date, October 29th, 2019, 10:58 p.m. Cashier, C. Hobbs. My hands went numb. That was exactly 2 years before I had stopped at that store. I hadn't brought that into the car. I didn't buy anything at 10:58, and I sure as hell didn't meet anyone named C. Hobbs. I called the store. A woman answered. Sounded half asleep or maybe just sick of everything. "Hi," I said. "Named C. Hobbs? I was there a few nights ago. I wanted to ask, do you still have any employees?" A pause. "Who is this?" "Just a customer. It's important." "We haven't had a Hobbs here in over a decade," she said. "Anymore. System's been digital for years." "Could he have worked nights?" "A beat. And we don't use paper receipts." Then she said, "Look, if this is about the aisle again, just let it go. That part of the store's being remodeled. Has been since before I even transferred in. Don't dig." Click. She hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time. That night I threw the receipt roll away. I tossed the charger too. I didn't even like having it near me anymore. But something had changed. I started checking paper towel aisles in every store I went into. I don't even know why. Just instinct now. Sometimes I find one empty, sometimes I don't. But sometimes I catch movement, a reflection, a beige cap, a stillness that doesn't belong. It's been 3 years. I still don't talk about that night in Scranton. Not in detail, not to anyone, but I think about it every time I'm in a store after dark. I scan for movement. I notice every person standing just a bit too still. And I don't linger near aisle 9, no matter what state I'm in. I've looked it up since. Urban legends, disappearances. Nothing official, but a lot of I saw him too stories in old forums, archived posts, stuff you only find if you know where to dig. Some say he was an employee who got trapped somehow. Some say it's a memory burned into the store itself. Some say he was never a person at all. I don't pretend to know. But I believe this. Certain places don't forget what they've lost. Certain routines, like folding a vest or scanning an item, get repeated long after the person's gone. And sometimes if you're tired enough, alone enough, or maybe just in the wrong store at the wrong time, you become part of that repetition too. Stay awake, not just with caffeine or headlights, but with your instincts. The world moves fast and forgets easy, but some moments burn into reality like a scar. When a place feels wrong, trust that feeling. When someone doesn't move like they should, pay attention. Because not all memories fade. Some stand still, like mannequins, like ghosts, like night shift workers who never clocked out. You wouldn't think working at Walmart overnight could be a kind of therapy, but for me it was. 6 months before that night, I was working as a paramedic. I'd been on the job for 5 years, long enough to get good at it, too long to keep all the calls straight in your head. But I still remember the one that broke me. A 2-year-old girl found unresponsive at a daycare. It wasn't anyone's fault. Not really. But when we got there, it was already too late. I did compressions until my shoulders gave out, and I knew it was over halfway through. I heard the scream her mom let out when she arrived, and that sound, it stayed in me. After that, I couldn't go back. I quit within a week. Couldn't handle the sirens. Couldn't even look at my old boots without my hands shaking. So I picked up night work, stocking shelves, mopping aisles, and unloading trucks at the Walmart Supercenter in Charleston. It didn't pay like EMS did, but it was quiet. Nobody bleeding, nobody dying, just lights, linoleum, and cold air, and silence mostly. March 11th started like any other overnight shift. I clocked in just before midnight. Only 4 of us were on. Management didn't care much about the night crew. As long as shelves got filled and nothing caught fire, we were invisible. I liked it that way. Around 1:55 a.m., my walkie crackled. A spill had been reported near aisle 28, the fishing section, all the way in the back past sporting goods. A weird place to find a mess that late. But I grabbed gloves and a mop and headed back. That's when I saw him. A man crouched near the bait freezer, back to me, no shoes, wearing an old mud-stained fishing vest and jeans torn to the knee. His hair was stringy and long, almost stuck to the back of his neck. I figured he was homeless, maybe confused, maybe just trying to warm up. "Hey man," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You all right?" No response. Just this light scratching sound, metal on metal. I took a few steps closer. He was scraping something against the edge of the freezer. It took a second to register. It was a fish hook, old, rusted. His fingers gripped it like it was part of him. "Sir," I said firmer. "Store's closing in a bit. You can't be back here." Then he turned, too slowly. His face was pale, lips colorless, eyes sunken and hollow, like he'd been underwater for a while. But what made me freeze, completely, was how calm he looked, like he hadn't heard me at all, like he was listening to something else. He stood. The fish hook dangled loosely from his fingertips. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just turned and walked into the next aisle, knocking over a cardboard display of tackle boxes. But he didn't flinch. He didn't look down. The lights above him flickered, then cut out entirely. I pulled out my walkie. Case. We've got someone unstable near 28. Possible mental health static. No voice came back, no acknowledgement, just that humming silence, and the faint smell, like old lake water. When the lights flickered again, I took a step back. I'd seen a lot in my paramedic days. People on bad trips, outbursts, seizures, even one guy hallucinating that his skin was on fire. But this was something else. This wasn't frantic, this wasn't panic, it was cold. I backed out of the fishing aisle, trying to breathe normal. The scratching sound had stopped, but my ears were ringing. Something about the way he moved. It wasn't right. It didn't match the rhythm of the world. And the air was colder. Not like AC cold, like wet earth, early morning by the shore cold, and the smell. I kept catching whiffs of something mossy and bitter, like algae left too long in the sun. I found Ray, one of the other night crew, and told him what happened. He frowned. Fishing vest? No shoes? Yeah, I said. Did you see him? No, but I've heard about him. He didn't elaborate. Just grabbed a box cutter from his belt like it might help and followed me back. But when we turned the corner into aisle 28, everything looked fine. The tackle box display wasn't on the floor anymore. The lights were back on. The bait freezer was closed, but the handle had a mark on it. 5 wide finger smudges streaked down the glass like someone had dragged their hand across it. Fresh, greasy, real. Ray stepped forward and opened the freezer. Empty. Just bags of bait and frost. We didn't say anything. I checked my walkie again. Still dead. Then I looked up. One of the ceiling cameras blinked once, then froze. The red light stopped blinking. We walked out of that section fast. Back at the employee break room, we tried pulling the security feed. Between 1:45 and 2:05 a.m., the cameras near aisle 28 had glitched completely. Just static and empty frames. No one walking in. No one walking out. Ray closed the laptop quietly. Don't tell Tina, he muttered. She was the shift supervisor. Already thinks we're all paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. I knew what I'd seen. That man, that face, that hook. And the way he looked through me like I was something floating on the surface. The next night I came in early. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop thinking about him. I barely slept that day. Kept dreaming of dragging water, of that scraping sound, of the smell. I even threw my work shoes in the wash twice. Still couldn't get the scent out. My cousin, who I was crashing with, said I was being dramatic. I didn't argue, but I also didn't tell him what I saw. Tina, our supervisor, pulled me aside before shift. You good? I must have looked tired. Yeah, I lied. Just didn't sleep well. She glanced at the mop closet. You're not the first. That stopped me. What do you mean? She hesitated. Look, we've had a couple folks report weird stuff back there, especially near that freezer. One lady on day shift swore she saw wet footprints once. We chalked it up to condensation. You didn't think to check cameras? We did, she said. They glitched. She looked me in the eye. Every time. That night I avoided aisle 28. I volunteered for truck unloading, even cleaned the break room fridge to stay busy. But around 2 a.m. I went to fill the vending machine and passed the fishing section without meaning to. And there he was, back turned. Same vest, same stance, just standing, still as a painting. This time I didn't speak. I just walked faster. A few days later, I finally asked my manager Rick about it. Rick wasn't the type to entertain ghost stories. He was a facts and labor hours guy. But when I brought it up, carefully, his face went a little pale. He nodded, sat down. You ever hear of a guy named Jeb? He asked. I shook my head. Used to come in all the time. Homeless. Usually harmless. Wore the same fishing vest every day, tried to stay warm near the bait freezer in winter. My stomach turned. Security kicked him out a few times, but he always came back. One night, March 11th, 2 years ago, he collapsed back there. Seizure. Maybe hypothermia, maybe a mix of stuff in his system. He was gone before EMS showed up. I didn't speak. Rick continued. You worked paramedic before this, right? Yeah. He looked me over. Then you know, and some things stick around. That was the last thing he said on the matter. That was my last week. I put in notice. Told myself it was time to start healing. For real this time. I signed up for therapy again. I even called my old captain from EMS. Told him I wasn't ready to come back, but maybe one day. But something stayed with me. My shoes. Even after 3 washes. They always smelled faintly of lake water. I ended up throwing them out. But some nights, I swear I can still smell it. When I drive by fishing stores or walk near freezers. I avoid those sections now, especially in March, especially late. Some places don't forget pain. Whether it's the corners of your mind or the shadowed aisles of a quiet store, loss leaves a mark. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just waits, patiently, in the cold. Listen to what your instincts whisper, and when a space feels wrong, don't ignore it. Because not all ghosts want to be seen. Some just want to keep standing where they were left. It's strange how fast life can unravel. 1 month you're designing logos for eco-startups and editing brand kits from a cozy 1-bedroom apartment with plants in the windows. Then 1 bad client ghosts, 2 more slow pay, and suddenly the bills outweigh your optimism. That's where I was last July. Broke, jobless, single, homeless, in everything but the cardboard sign sense. After a stupid fight, mostly about money and how I never planned ahead, my boyfriend told me to pack up and leave. It was his place. I didn't argue. I moved out that night with 2 suitcases, my laptop, and nowhere to go. Friends offered couches, floor space, air mattresses. I rotated like a ghost between guest rooms and fold-out futons. Some nights I just sat in my car outside 24-hour diners for the Wi-Fi and the illusion of freedom. I was 32, tired, and holding myself together with gum and caffeine. That's when Claire, a friend from high school, messaged me out of the blue. She said she was traveling for work and had a vacant apartment, B14, in a building across from the Walmart on Coburg Road in Eugene. She warned it was rough. No AC, reeked of smoke, neighbors who yelled like they were in a reality show. But it was a roof, rent-free. I said yes before she finished the offer. It was a strange place, B14. The carpets were sticky. The cabinets smelled like someone's grandma's house. I kept my things packed. I didn't plan to stay long. I started going to Walmart most evenings. Not for groceries, really. I just didn't want to sit alone in that yellow-lit apartment, listening to the neighbors curse each other out. There was something calming about the brightness of the store, the chatter, the stocked shelves. It reminded me that the world still turned, even if I was standing still. On July 3rd, around 6:30 p.m., the heat was unbearable. Claire's AC hadn't worked since spring, and I was sweating just sitting still. I finally decided to buy that cheap box fan I'd been eyeing. It was $18. Nothing fancy, but enough to move some air. In the home appliance aisle, I compared 2 boxes. They were identical except one had a corner dented. I was reaching for the better one when I heard a whisper behind me. That one's broken. Saw it spark. I turned. A man stood way too close. Mid-30s, maybe older. Pale, scruffy. Wearing a white t-shirt so thin it was practically gray. He didn't have a card or basket. No name tag. No uniform. Not browsing. Just standing. I gave him a polite nod, muttered, "Thanks," and stepped away. I figured maybe he worked there. But when I went to check out, register 11, I saw him again, standing 1 lane over, still empty-handed, still watching. I leaned toward the cashier. "That guy's been following me." She glanced up. "Who?" I turned to point. He was gone. I paid fast and walked back to B14 with the fan tucked under my arm like a shield. I set it up by the window, plugged it in, and sat on the couch telling myself I was being paranoid. That stress made people see threats in every shadow. By midnight, I was drifting off to the fan's dull hum when I heard something. Plastic, rustling, deliberate, like someone adjusting a grocery bag slowly. I sat up. Near the front door sat a Walmart bag I hadn't brought in. It sat there like it had always been there. A plain white plastic Walmart bag with its handles looped together, slightly bulging like someone had just set it down. I froze, phone light trembling in my hand. It was impossible. I had walked in with one bag. I remembered exactly where I dropped it. This wasn't it. Cautiously, I approached. The fan buzzed behind me. The bag smelled faintly of shampoo and apple skin. Inside were 3 items: a red apple, a travel-sized bottle of shampoo, a Walmart receipt. I pulled it out. The timestamp read 6:35 p.m., the exact time I'd been at the fan aisle. The register, 11, mine. But it listed 2 box fans. Identical make, model, price. I only bought one. I checked the fan again, thinking maybe I'd accidentally walked out with 2. But there was only the one beside me, humming and cheap. I flipped the receipt over. No notes, no signature, nothing to explain why it had shown up at my door. My chest went tight. Had someone followed me? Broken in and left it? Was this some sick prank? I grabbed my phone and keys, slipped into my sneakers without socks, and half jogged back to the Walmart. I didn't care how I looked. I needed answers. Julian, the overnight manager, listened without blinking. He had that kind of calm that made you question if you were overreacting. But when I showed him the receipt, his brow furrowed. "Register 11, huh?" he said. "All right, let's check." In the security room, we watched the footage. 6:34 p.m., I walked up with the fan. 6:35 p.m., the register beeped. 2 fans rang up, but the first beep, it had no customer, no hands, no movement, just air. It was like the scanner had blinked by itself. Julian scrubbed back and forth, slowing the playback. "Here's the weird part," he muttered. "The inventory shows 1 fan left the store. Yours. The other just poof. No void, no cancel, no theft. It's like it disappeared." I left Walmart that night feeling like I'd stepped into some liminal crack between reality and dream. I couldn't sleep. I shoved the fan in the dumpster behind the building, walked a lap around the block to calm down, and crawled into bed by 4 a.m. At 7:30 the next morning, I stepped outside to find the fan sitting neatly on the back porch. No note, no bag, just sitting there, dusted with morning dew. I left B14 that afternoon. Claire barely asked questions when I called her. I told her I'd be staying with someone else for a while. I didn't mention the receipt, or the bag, or the disappearing scan. For the next few weeks, I crashed at her mom's place across town. I sent out resumes, avoided Walmart, tried to push everything into a back corner of my mind, but some things cling to you. I tried to throw out the fan again, left it at a Goodwill drop site, unplugged and sealed in its box. 2 days later, I found it in the backseat of my car. I stopped touching it after that, just moved it from place to place like it might bite. Eventually, I left it on a street corner with a cardboard sign taped to the top, "Free, do not take inside." It sat there for nearly 3 weeks. Then, one night, it was gone. A few months later, I was walking through the same Walmart, this time with my new roommate, Nora. We needed trash bags and paper towels. I'd avoided the store as long as I could, but it was cheap, and we were broke. I didn't tell her anything. She was halfway through the list when I froze in the fan aisle. The same model, same dented box. The memory hit like a punch to the throat. I turned away. That's when I heard a guy behind me mutter, "Still sparks sometimes." I turned, fast, but the aisle was empty. Not a single shopper nearby, just a soft hum of ceiling lights and the rustle of a display sign shifting under the AC vent. Later, I asked around, quietly, just to see if I was the only one. The overnight stalkers were the first to say something. A few joked about the extra scan on Register 11, like it was a glitch in the Matrix or something. One guy, Harold, the old stock manager, spoke quieter. "We had a guy a few years back," he said. "Lived across the street, apartment B14. Came in every summer, bought a fan like clockwork." He paused, eyes distant. "Died in a heat wave. Fan was plugged in, but it never worked. They found him a few days later, alone, no AC. He just cooked." I asked what he looked like. White shirt, always wore it. Looked like it hadn't been washed in a year. I thanked him and left without another word. Some hauntings aren't about ghosts. They're about absence. About people who slipped through the cracks so quietly, no one noticed until they were gone. And sometimes those people leave behind more than just memories. They leave reminders, little loops in the system, echoes in receipts. A whisper in an empty aisle reminding you someone was here, someone who wanted to be seen. Long before that night, I thought loneliness was just a feeling. Something soft like rain on a window or a sad movie you cry to and move on from. But when my relationship ended that September, loneliness became something else entirely. It had weight. It sat on my chest at night humming like static. I could feel it in my bones when I sat still too long. I'd moved to New Orleans 2 years earlier. Big city, new start, fresh gallery gigs. That's what I told people. But in truth, I moved for him. When that fell apart, I stayed behind, alone in a one-bedroom apartment that echoed too much. The days blended. The nights got worse. I stopped returning calls. I skipped meals. My sketchbook stayed empty for weeks. That Sunday night, October 23rd, it was raining again. Not hard, but the kind of drizzle that smeared across the windshield like breath on glass. I had been watching a horror movie, something cheesy from the 90s, a ritual I used to share with him. But the silence in the apartment was louder than the TV. I hadn't spoken to another human being in 2 full days. I needed out. Not to go somewhere meaningful, just anywhere. Walmart was open 24 hours. There was one on Carrollton, maybe 10 minutes away. I told myself I needed cereal, or maybe a new pen set. That was the excuse. The truth? I needed to remember what it felt like to exist around other people, even strangers. I pulled on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and drove through the rain. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few scattered cars and a flickering lamppost near the front. Inside, the store was quiet, colder than I expected, humming with fluorescent fatigue. A couple employees stocked shelves without talking. A man in a Saints jacket argued with the self-checkout kiosk. Everything felt too still, like the building was waiting for something. I wandered for a while. No list, just touching things. Fuzzy socks, expired Halloween candles, a random spatula I didn't need. Eventually, I found myself in aisle 7, the stationery aisle. It smelled like cheap paper and rubber erasers. I stood there, thumbing through sketch pads like I actually planned to draw again. That's when I saw it. A flash of movement at the end of the aisle. Not loud, not even distinct, just a blur of black, like someone ducking out of sight. I stopped breathing for a second. Blinked. Nothing. My heart jumped anyway. I waited. Listened. The only sound was the distant beep of a register and the wheel of a cart squeaking somewhere behind me. My mind spun stories. An employee restocking, a glitch in the light, a trick of my peripheral vision. But something in my gut pulled tight. I walked out of the aisle, casually glanced down aisle 8. Empty. But as I turned to head toward the front, I swore something shifted in the reflection of a product box. A tall shape, standing still. I didn't want to believe it. I mean, this wasn't a horror movie. This was a Walmart on a Sunday night. And yet, I wasn't laughing. Not even close. I told myself to relax. Maybe it was another shopper, someone I hadn't noticed. Or maybe just nerves, leftover tension from the breakup. A week of isolation making my brain fire weird. Still, I didn't go back to aisle 7. I walked faster, pushing the cart like it was a lifeline. In aisle 8, I found a fresh set of graphite pencils. I grabbed them on impulse. My fingers trembled slightly, but I focused on breathing. One step at a time. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, not behind me, not directly. They came from the other side of the shelves, parallel to where I stood, soft, deliberate. One at a time. They stopped when I stopped. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Just that same low hum from the overhead lights and the muffled music playing from nowhere in particular. I moved toward the end of the aisle, hard in my throat, peered around the corner. Empty, but as I turned back, I caught it again. Movement at the far end of aisle 7. A tall figure. Still. Watching. I blinked. Gone. I wanted to laugh. I actually tried. But it came out more like a cough. My skin felt electric, my instincts screaming in ways my brain couldn't explain. I had to leave. Now. I fast walked toward the registers, past the women's clothing section, past the electronics, not turning around. I refused to look back. But every step felt like something was gaining on me. Not running, just close. By the time I reached the checkout, I was nearly out of breath. A teenage girl in a blue vest barely looked up from her phone. I forced a smile, tossed my sketchpad and pencils onto the counter. "Quiet night?" I asked. She shrugged. Always is after 11. Something in her voice sounded off. I tried to keep things light. "Ever see anything weird?" She looked up then. Her expression flickered. "Yeah, stuff falls, stuff moves, cameras glitch." Before I could ask more, her eyes darted past me, and she froze. "What?" I asked. She shook her head quickly. "Nothing, just thought someone was standing behind you." I turned. No one. I didn't wait for change. I grabbed the bag and made for the exit like something was chasing me, because in that moment, I wasn't sure something wasn't. The automatic doors hissed open. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I sprinted to my car. When I looked in the rearview mirror as I pulled out, I saw the doors slide open behind me again. No one came out. Back home, I double-locked the door and turned on every light. I felt stupid, embarrassed, but the fear didn't fade. Not even as I curled under the blanket on my couch. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, over coffee, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About what the cashier said, about the look on her face. Around 9 a.m., I called the store. I didn't want to sound paranoid, so I played it casual. "Hi, I was there last night and I think I dropped my wallet. Could you check the security footage near aisle 7? There was a pause. Then a man's voice, deep and tired. "That aisle's camera's been glitching for weeks." I stayed quiet. He added, "One's scheduled to be there. Always around midnight. Always shows movement, even when no another pause." Then he asked, "Were you alone in that aisle?" My mouth went dry. I thanked him and hung up. For days I tried to rationalize it. Stress, sleep deprivation, maybe even mild hallucination. But deep down, I knew what I felt that night wasn't imagined. It wasn't just fear. It was presence. Like something had been aware of me even when I couldn't see it. The strangest part was what followed. Every time I went into another store, a pharmacy, a corner market, I felt the same thing. That prickle on the back of my neck, that instinct to scan each aisle before entering. I even stopped listening to music while shopping. I needed to hear everything. Once, while checking out at Target, I caught a shadow move across an end cap display behind me. Nothing was there. I knew it sounded crazy, but I started drawing again, not the kind of stuff I usually sold. These were abstract, black figures, empty aisles, angled shadows. They disturbed me even as I made them. One of my friends saw the sketches and said, "Remember." "These feel like dreams you're not supposed to," I laughed. But it stuck with me. A few weeks later, I went back to that Walmart. I had avoided it, but curiosity, or maybe something deeper, pulled me back. It was around the same time at night. Rain drizzled on the windshield as I parked. The store looked the same, half lit and still. I walked in. Same layout, same aisles. But aisle 7 felt different. It was empty, completely. No merchandise, no shelves. Just a long, bare corridor of tile and walls. I asked a worker nearby what happened. She frowned. Maintenance, something with the wiring. That aisle's been closed off for a few days. Weird stuff with the lights and scanners. I asked when it started. She checked a clipboard. October 23rd. The night I was there, I didn't stay. I didn't ask anything else. I just walked out, got in my car, and went home. I haven't gone back since. Some places remember you, and some silences are not empty. Even when you feel alone, you might not be. They never warn you how quiet shared custody can get. Not just the days without your kid, but the in-between silences. The ones where you second-guess every decision, replay old arguments, and wonder if you're still someone your daughter looks up to. The divorce wasn't dramatic. No cheating, no screaming matches. Just two tired people realizing they weren't right for each other. That didn't make it easier. I got every other weekend. I kept the house. She got full custody. Emma was 8, old enough to understand change but too young to make sense of it. I was late picking her up that Saturday. I'd left early, but a wreck on I-69 turned the freeway into a parking lot. When I finally pulled up to my ex's driveway, Emma was sitting on the porch with her arms crossed and her lips tight. No hug. No, "Hi, Dad." Just silence. Her mother didn't say much either. Just handed off the backpack and gave me that look. The one that said, "You don't get many chances, don't screw this up." I tried small talk. She didn't bite. I promised her snacks. Still nothing. Then I offered to take her to Walmart to pick out a toy, just like we used to when things were better. That got a nod. Walmart in the middle of a July afternoon in Texas is a furnace of cranky parents, screaming kids, and carts with sticky wheels. We wandered the aisles, Emma trailing behind me like a shadow. She wouldn't hold my hand, wouldn't talk. I tried to remember if this was how I acted when my parents split up, but all I could think about was the sound of my own breath and the constant hum of fluorescent lights. We ended up in the back near the clearance section. I was pointing out some bubble wands when I saw it, an abandoned cart shoved against a shelf. It was loaded with random stuff, expired batteries, a broken umbrella, a half-drunk soda bottle sweating through its label. And sitting right on top, crooked and stiff, was a porcelain doll. Faded dress, cracked cheek, one glass eye that didn't quite face forward. Emma stopped beside me and stared. "That's Charlotte," she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "You named her already?" "No," she said, flat. "That's her name. I know her." I chuckled, trying to brush it off. "Well, she's not coming home with us." Emma didn't answer, just kept staring. I looked closer. The cart didn't have a barcode or receipt. Nothing to say it belonged to a customer. It didn't even look like it belonged in the store. The doll looked older than I was. Definitely not something you'd find in the toy aisle. I flagged down an employee. Stocky guy in a red vest, probably in his 40s. Looked like he'd had it with the day. "Hey," I said. "Someone left this creepy cart here. Might be lost and found." He gave it one glance and exhaled like he was already tired of the conversation. "Again?" he muttered. I frowned. "Again?" "Same cart, same doll. We move it to the back, it shows up again. Different junk every time." I laughed awkwardly. "Someone messing with y'all?" He didn't smile. "Every day. Loss prevention checked the footage. No one's pushing it out. It's just there." My skin prickled. Emma was still staring, and that's when I heard it. A giggle. Soft, close, but not Emma. I snapped my head around. No one. Just a teenage couple arguing over Nerf guns and an older lady digging through laundry pods down the aisle. No other kids nearby. No reason for that sound. Emma tugged my sleeve. "She wants to come with us," she said softly. I looked down. "Who does?" She pointed to the doll. "Emma," I said slowly, "we're not taking that thing." "I didn't ask if we should," she replied. "I said she wants to." Her voice wasn't playful. It was flat, like she was reciting something she didn't fully understand. I crouched beside her, trying to keep my voice calm, even ours. "Someone probably dumped it here." "Sweetie, it's just a broken doll. It's not—" "She's lonely," Emma whispered. I took her hand, gently at first. "One alone. Let's go pick out a toy, okay? Anything you want. Let's leave this." Her expression darkened, her hand stiff in mine. "Barbie doesn't talk to me," she said. "Charlotte does." I didn't say another word. I just stood up and walked us away from that cart, hand gripping hers tighter than I probably should have. She kept looking over her shoulder, eyes fixed on the porcelain face. The further we got from the back of the store, the more she softened. By the time we reached the checkout, she was humming again. At the register, I glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded, then mumbled, "She doesn't like it when we leave her." I tried to laugh. "Well, she'll get over it." I was lying to myself more than her. That night felt wrong. Emma didn't want to sleep in her room, said it was too cold, too loud, too quiet. I let her crash on the couch with her blanket and a movie, but halfway through she turned the TV off herself. "Dad," she said. "Yeah?" "She's outside." I felt a chill in my spine. "Who is?" She didn't answer, just pointed to the window. I got up, turned on the porch light and stepped outside. Nothing, except something sitting on the welcome mat. A plastic flower crown. The same one from the cart. I picked it up. The fake petals were damp, and something about the plastic felt warmer than it should have. I tossed it in the trash and went back inside, brushing it off as coincidence. Maybe someone dropped it. Maybe Emma picked it up and left it there. But in the middle of the night, I woke up to a thump. Not from inside, from the front door. Just one, dull knock. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Emma didn't wake up. I stayed there in the dark, staring at the hallway, waiting for another sound. It never came. I went back to Walmart the next morning, left Emma with her grandmother. I needed answers, or closure, or maybe just to feel like I wasn't losing my mind. The cart was gone. I found the same employee from yesterday, standing by the returns desk, sipping from a giant coffee. "Hey," I said. "That cart from yesterday, the one with the doll?" His eyes shifted. "Security took it to the back office last night." "Good," I said. "It was seriously creeping my daughter out." He nodded slowly. "Thing is, it's not there anymore." I stared. "What do you mean?" He dropped his voice. "It was locked in a clear plastic bin. We tagged it for disposal. This morning, crate was empty. No sign of break-in. Footage shows nothing." "You're telling me it vanished?" "I'm telling you I don't know what happened and I don't want to know." I left without buying anything. That night I checked Emma's drawings. Every single page, dozens of them, had the same face. Wide black eyes, cracked cheeks, a too big smile. Charlotte. It's been almost a year. Emma doesn't mention Charlotte anymore. Not directly. But I see the effects. She won't go down certain aisles in any store. She sleeps with her light on. She asks strange questions before bed, like whether dolls can follow people, whether things from stores can come home even if you didn't pay for them. One time I walked into her room and found her talking to the corner. I asked who she was talking to. "No one," she said, but her voice was tight, like she was protecting someone. Sometimes she laughs in her sleep, a soft giggle. Other nights she cries and won't tell me why. Once, while tucking her in, she whispered, "She's back in the aisles." "What do you mean?" "She's waiting." I still avoid aisle 17 when I shop. I don't know if the cart ever returned. I don't ask. But once, at a thrift store in another city, I saw a porcelain doll sitting alone on a shelf. Dress faded, one glass eye misaligned. I left without buying anything. Some things left behind aren't forgotten. Some toys aren't playthings. When something calls to a child, listen closely, because they might not be the one doing the choosing. I've worked night shifts for 5 years at the Walmart off South Kirkwood in Houston. You pick up a lot about people working late retail, who's lonely, who's stealing, who's just killing time before going home to something worse. But if I'm honest, the weirdest part of the job has always been the quiet. There's a kind of quiet that settles into a big box store after closing. Once the families clear out, once the last announcement echoes through the loudspeakers and the automatic doors stop whooshing open. A kind of quiet that doesn't feel natural, not just silence. Hollow. That Monday night, March 11th, we were running light staff, inventory prep week, just me and Tyrone from overnight stock. Place was mostly dead after 9 as usual. I was back in the employee break room sitting under the buzzing vending machine, eating stale cheese crackers, reviewing the shift report on my tablet. My back was killing me. My eyes were half closed. Then the walkie crackled. "Yo, Evan," Tyrone's voice came through, thick with static. 2 dudes just came in. One of them looked off, real pale, walked straight toward the bathroom like he was about to throw up or something. I checked the time, 9:37 p.m. "Did he say anything to you?" "No, just limped past me. The other guy left right after." "Left?" "Yeah." Came in with him, turned around, walked back out like 10 seconds later. That didn't sit right. I sat up straighter, squinting at the small CCTV screen in the break room. I could only see the front register and entry from that angle. Nothing by the bathrooms. I grabbed my keys and my walkie and headed toward the garden side of the store where the public restrooms were tucked into a back corner. The place felt off. Even more than usual. Fluorescent lights above flickered slightly as I walked under them. Not uncommon, but the timing didn't help the growing tightness in my chest. My footsteps echoed more than they should have. I got to the men's room door and knocked. "Sir, everything all right in there?" No answer. I waited a few seconds, tried again. Nothing. The motion sensor flickered the hallway lights once more. I pushed open the door slowly, hesitating at the threshold like something was warning me not to. Inside was the usual, buzzing lights, water dripping into a grimy sink, and the faint scent of hand soap mixed with something metallic underneath. Then I saw them. Boots. Black ones. Partially visible beneath the door of the last stall. "Sir?" I called again, stepping in carefully. Still no answer. I approached slowly. The stall door wasn't even locked. I pushed it gently, and I wish I never had. A man slumped forward on the toilet, his chin to his chest, shirt soaked with dried blood, one of his eyes wide open and lifeless. The other? Missing. There was a knife buried deep into the orbital socket, straight through the bone. I staggered back. My knees went weak, and I almost slipped on the tile. The world spun, but some old muscle memory kicked in. I pulled out my phone, called 911 and locked the bathroom door from the outside with the key we keep on our ring for maintenance. Then I walked back up front, hard in my throat. Tyrone saw my face before I said anything. He froze mid-step, still holding a box cutter. "What's wrong?" "There's a guy in the bathroom," I said. "He's not moving. There's a knife. I don't know if he's alive." Tyrone's expression dropped. "You call the cops?" "They're on the way. Lock the front doors. No one else goes in or out." We both moved fast. Years of routines suddenly replaced by the unknown. The store was empty, but still, this wasn't just a prank or a passed-out customer. This was something else. Something worse. I ducked back into the break room and pulled up the camera feeds on the manager tablet. There's a scrub function we can use to roll back a couple of hours. I punched in 9:15 p.m. and hit play. There he was, hooded, wearing dark clothes, walking in like anyone else but only one guy. I paused, watched again, rewound to 9:16. Same thing, just one man. Walks in, no second guy behind him. No one turns around and walks out a few seconds later. Tyrone saw two people, but the footage only showed one. I replayed the exact moment the doors closed behind him. That's when I saw it. A flicker. A frame or two where his shadow, his literal shadow, split. It widened unnaturally, peeled to the right like something detached from him slipping into the adjacent aisle. Then it was gone. I scrubbed back, zoomed in. Same moment. One man. But something about his shape in that instant. It didn't move like a person. It moved like something pretending to be a shadow. The police showed up 10 minutes later. EMTs wheeled in with stretchers. I unlocked the restroom, stomach twisting. I couldn't watch them go in. I just stared down the hallway like it would vanish behind me. After a few minutes, one of the paramedics called out, "He's alive." Tyrone and I both exchanged a look. "How?" he whispered. The guy had lost a lot of blood, but somehow he still had a pulse. The EMTs moved fast, stabilizing him, wrapping his head. They loaded him into the ambulance with practiced speed, but no one answered my questions. One officer stayed behind to ask me about the footage. I showed them everything. When I told them about the shadow splitting, the cop, Detective Mendez, I think, leaned in and watched the clip twice. "You altered this in any way?" he asked. "No," I said. "That's straight from our cloud system." He didn't respond, just jotted something in a small notebook. "This guy didn't have any ID," he added. "No wallet, no phone, just a metal locket in his jacket. Photo inside of a woman and a baby, could be his family. Do you think someone attacked him before he came in?" "Hard to say, no trail of blood, no signs of panic. Knife was clean, no prints, no defensive wounds. He didn't scream, didn't call for help." "Sometimes," the detective said, "people don't get the chance. Or maybe they weren't alone." I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up watching the footage again and again, every angle, every second. It didn't make sense. It never would. There was no second man. But something came in with him. Or something came out. The following days at work were quiet. HR sent out a memo telling us to refer any media inquiries to corporate. The bathroom was cleaned, reopened, and never mentioned again. I noticed Tyrone changed his shift to mornings. I didn't blame him. A week passed, then another. Then one night, around the same time, I had to walk by that hallway again. One of the cashiers had left a bag in the break room. I offered to grab it for her. As I passed the garden center restrooms, I felt it again, that thickness in the air, like walking underwater. The hallway lights dimmed slightly, just for a breath, and I heard it, breathing, low, ragged, wet, coming from behind the bathroom door, which was slightly ajar. The lights inside weren't on, but I swear, in that sliver of darkness, I saw a boot, just the toe of it, black leather, motionless. I didn't go in. I left the bag on the break room counter and clocked out early. We never identified the man. Eventually, we learned he'd been listed as missing 4 days earlier, last seen on a freeway camera 2 towns over. Police said he might have been attacked, dumped, stumbled into our store disoriented. It was the most logical story, the cleanest one. But the truth isn't always clean. I watched someone walk into our store alone, and I saw his shadow split like it had a mind of its own. To this day, I don't know if it was a hallucination, a glitch, or something worse. All I know is, ever since that night, something feels off in that building. Employees avoid the bathroom. No one says why, but I know they feel it too. Sometimes when I close alone, I still hear it. Not voices, not footsteps, just breathing. Low, quiet, coming from the stall at the end of the hallway, the one that shouldn't be occupied, the one I will never open again. Sometimes the scariest things aren't what you see. They're what the camera doesn't catch. Evil doesn't always walk in through the front door, and in the quiet places we think we control, we're not always alone. People talk about fresh starts like there's some kind of magical reset. A new state, new job, maybe a second-hand car and the right attitude. And suddenly, you're not the person who failed rent 3 months in a row or cried in the frozen foods aisle of a Kroger. But fresh starts are rarely about hope. More often, they're desperation in disguise. That's what Texas was for me. I moved to Plano with no job lined up, no friends, just a studio apartment I couldn't afford, and a Corolla that coughed every time I turned the key. My mom had stopped picking up my calls, and the last time my bank app refreshed, I had just enough to cover gas and a week's worth of tuna packets. So when I saw the fluorescent "Now Hiring" sign taped to the inside of the Walmart neighborhood market on Ohio Drive, I walked in. Didn't even fix my hair. I filled out the application at a customer service desk while a kid screamed about gummy bears 3 feet away. Mel, the store manager, interviewed me on the spot. Late 40s, sharp eyes, and the kind of energy that suggested she'd once been a drill sergeant or a bartender. Maybe both. She didn't ask a lot of questions. Looked me up and down, then said, "Night shifts, 4 to close. Starts tomorrow. You cool with that?" Cool wasn't the word I'd have used, but I nodded. I needed the paycheck more than I needed to be comfortable. By my 6th shift, I was scheduled to close the store alone. "Thursday's light," Mel said, almost dismissively. 9. "You'll be fine. We don't get much traffic," after I'd barely learned where all the light switches were, but I faked confidence and said, "No problem." The evening was uneventful at first. Quiet, like she'd promised. I tidied up end caps, reshelved abandoned cereal boxes, and hovered near the self-checkouts. By 9:45, there were only 3 customers left, a couple in produce arguing about lettuce and a young mom buying formula while her toddler sucked on a pacifier the size of his whole mouth. At exactly 10, the PA system gave its gentle warning, closing in 30 minutes. "Attention customers. The store will be right on cue." The doors opened and a man stepped inside. He was in his 50s, tall, pale, and carried himself like someone who hadn't been looked in the eye in a long time. His gray coat looked too heavy for the 70-degree night, and his shoes made no sound against the tile. He didn't grab a cart or basket, just wandered toward the center aisles. "Evening, sir. Just a heads up. We close at 10:30, I said. He didn't answer, just stared at me with eyes that stayed on a second too long. That stare felt like a push, like he was trying to unpeel something inside me. I backed off and returned to the self-checkout area, eyes flicking to the monitor that gave me a split-screen view of all 4 registers. The man didn't seem to have any purpose. He'd meander down one aisle, pause, then drift to another. No items in hand, no urgency. Just this strange, slow orbit around nothing in particular. Then finally he picked up a bottle of orange juice and headed to register 3. That's when things got weird. He didn't scan the bottle, just stood at register 3, staring down at the screen like he couldn't remember why he was there. The orange juice sat heavy in his hand and his knuckles looked pale from the grip. I waited maybe a minute, 2. Then I walked over. "Need help, sir?" I asked. He turned slowly and smiled. That smile didn't match anything. It stretched wide but never reached his eyes, like he was practicing it for someone else. "I like when it's quiet," he said. "Don't you?" "Sure," I said, instantly uncomfortable. "It's peaceful, I guess." "You're new here." "I've been around a while." He shook his head. "You're too careful. You still believe rules mean something." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, just nodded and motioned toward the scanner. "Can go ahead and scan right here." "Can go ahead and scan right here." His hand dipped into his coat, slowly. Too slowly. I flinched, hard in my throat. He pulled out a crumpled dollar and a few coins. I took the cash, hands a little shaky, and printed his receipt. Eye contact again. He didn't move. "All set," I said, trying not to make. He stood near the exit, just inside the automatic doors. They opened, sensing his presence, but he didn't step forward. He just stood there, half in, half out, until the doors got tired of waiting and shut on him, bumping his shoulder. He shuffled back, then out, fading into the night like fog. I locked the doors immediately, then I checked every aisle. Twice. Nothing. No sound. No people. The silence should have been comforting. Instead, it pressed in on me like something waiting to be acknowledged. I started the close, turned off lights section by section, counted down the drawer at register 3, moved to the back office, and started on the safe. I left the break room door open, maybe just for noise, maybe just in case. Then I heard it, a faint clink, like metal on metal. It came from the front of the store. I stepped out, slow and quiet, heart thudding in my ears. The checkout lanes were empty, all except register 3, where the same bottle of orange juice was back on the scanner. Same brand, same size, no bag, no receipt. I had handed both to him. I remember my hands tightening around the edge of the counter. I looked everywhere. No one was there. The juice sat perfectly still. I never heard the doors open again, and I never saw him leave the lot. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up sitting cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, lights on, a baseball bat beside me like I knew how to use it. I told myself it was nothing, a glitch in memory, a weird coincidence. Someone could have put the juice there after I walked away, but deep down I knew. Mel didn't believe me the next day. Not that I told her everything. I just said something strange had happened and asked to switch shifts. "You'll be fine," she waved it off. "It's all nerves. First solo close always gets in your head." I stopped doing solos anyway. I begged, swapped, even offered to cover weekends just to stay on the earlier schedule. A week passed. Then, driving home after a 2 p.m. shift, I saw his car, parked at the edge of the lot. Old Lincoln, faded blue, looked like it hadn't moved in years. But I knew it was his. Even from a distance I knew. The driver's seat window was down, and he was sitting behind the wheel, just watching. Not the store. Watching me. I reported it. Mel said she'd keep an eye out. But there was no footage of him in the store lot. No one else had seen the car. The security guard who worked evenings claimed he checked the whole property every hour. Nothing. That night I drove to a different gas station just to avoid passing the store. I parked with my back to the wall, heart hammering like I'd run 5 miles. I barely made it through my groceries without checking over my shoulder. At home, I triple-locked the door and sat with the TV on all night. 2 days later, I saw the orange juice again. Not in the store, in my cart. I'd walked through the aisles at a Target 3 towns over and realized it was sitting right there, under my bag of tortilla chips. Same brand, same size. I hadn't picked it up. I stood there staring, every muscle tense. A woman next to me asked if I was okay. I left the cart and walked out without buying anything. The next week I called out sick. I left the job a month later. Mel didn't ask why. Maybe she already knew. I took a barista gig at a bookstore cafe downtown. Day shifts only. No night lights, no self-checkout stations. Just paperbacks, espresso, and regulars who smiled with their eyes. But every now and then, I still see him. In my dreams, in traffic, sometimes in a passing reflection in a shop window. I never hear his voice again, but I remember how it felt, like it crawled under my skin and stayed there. I still don't know what he wanted, or why he came back, but I know I wasn't the first person he did this to. And I doubt I'll be the last. Sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts or monsters. They're people who've been forgotten for so long they start to forget themselves. And if you look away for too long, you might not notice they've found you. And when the world moves on without them, they don't always stay gone. I used to think life had a way of making things clear, the chaos settling into patterns you could learn from, mistakes you could fix if you were paying attention. But lately, all I've learned is that some things stay murky, no matter how hard you stare. My name's Jordan Blake. I'm 38, and until recently I was married to a woman named Rachel. We've been separated for almost 6 months now. No messy fights, no dramatic court battles. Just that slow drifting apart you don't even notice until the silence is louder than any argument. I've got 2 kids, and this holiday season was shaping up to be one more reminder that some breaks never really heal. That's why I took the night shift cashier job at the Walmart Supercenter on West Airport Boulevard in Sugar Land. It was steady, predictable work. No surprises, no expectations, just scanning groceries for folks who, like me, were probably somewhere caught between weariness and hope. I clocked in on that cold December evening, tired from the phone call with Rachel earlier that afternoon. She wanted to discuss holiday logistics. Translated, she wanted to tell me where and when I could see the kids and remind me I was falling short in ways that words couldn't fully explain. I didn't bother responding much, just nodded along like I wasn't unraveling inside. The store was busy but calm, just the usual last-minute shoppers buying paper towels, wrapping paper, or a bottle of something to celebrate what they hoped would be better days. I wiped down my register, avoiding my reflection in the sliding glass doors. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly overhead, humming the soundtrack to 1,000 nights spent watching tired faces move through aisles. At 7:42 p.m., the store felt quieter than usual. That's when I saw him. A man. Tall, his figure coated in black from head to toe. Long trench coat, wide-brimmed hat shadowing his face. No cart, no basket, no phone buzzing or head down like the rest of us. Just slow, deliberate steps down aisle 3, past the cereals and canned soups. What was strange wasn't just that he stood out. It was how the other shoppers moved around him like he was a stain on the floor. A mother with a toddler veered off down another aisle when she saw him approach. No one made eye contact. It was like he was a ghost nobody wanted to admit existed. When he got to my lane, I stiffened. He placed 4 items on the counter, methodical and calm. A silver alarm clock, no packaging, just the clock itself. A can of black spray paint, a disposable camera, and a paperback book titled People Who Vanish. I forced a half smile, trying to break the tension. Interesting shopping list, I said. His head lifted slowly, the brim of his hat casting shadows over eyes that held a strange stillness. People shop for the wrong things, he said quietly. I scanned the alarm clock, then the paint, the camera, and finally the book. Each beep felt like a pin dropping in a quiet room. He paid in cash. Exact change. Not a word more until the receipt printed. He stood there, watching me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. When I handed him the receipt, he smiled. Not warm, not inviting, just knowing. You have a nice voice, he said softly. Thanks, I said, unsure how to respond. Then he leaned a bit closer, lowering his voice. You should stop talking to your ex. She already knows how it ends. My heart stopped. How could he know? I hadn't told a soul at work about Rachel. About the calls, the silence, or the way my chest felt heavy every time I dialed her number. Before I could ask, he tipped his hat, turned, and walked out the automatic doors. I stood there, frozen. I reported what happened to Raj, the overnight supervisor. He was a solid guy, middle-aged, no nonsense, eyes that missed little. We watched the security footage from aisle 3 together, the timestamp matching the exact moment of the interaction. But the screen showed nothing. No tall man, no coat, no hat, just empty aisles, still shelves, the hum of fluorescent lights. We switched to the register camera. There I was, talking to no one, scanning items, taking cash from thin air, bagging nothing, printing a receipt for an invisible purchase. Raj looked at me with a calm I didn't feel. You're not the first, he said. What do you mean? He leaned in. There was a guy in produce who told me he saw the same man a couple months ago. Said the man told him something private about his dead brother. We checked the footage then. Nothing. The man wasn't there. I swallowed hard. This was bigger than me. The days after, everything felt off. I tried to brush it aside, but the man's words echoed in my head. Why mention Rachel? How did he know? At home, I found myself clutching the receipt he left behind. It was blank. No ink, no numbers, Just the same smooth thermal paper you'd get from any register. But under the soft glow of my desk lamp, I swore I saw faint impressions pressed into the paper, like a message hidden in the shadows of heat and pressure. Sometimes the impressions looked like letters. Sometimes it looked like my name. I started to dread going back to work. Every time the sliding doors whooshed open, I wondered if he'd come back. Would he know something else? Would he say it aloud? 2 weeks later, I quit. Not because I was scared, because I couldn't stop wondering about the others. Who else had seen this man? Who else had their secrets spoken aloud by a stranger who left no trace? I kept the receipt in my wallet. It was a reminder that some things can't be explained, no matter how much you want them to be. Sometimes the hardest mysteries are the ones where you're the only witness. And sometimes the past speaks in whispers only a few can hear. There are moments when the world blurs the line between what is real and what we fear. Sometimes the hardest truths come from the shadows we refuse to face, and the strangers who know too much. The lesson? We may carry secrets we think are safe, but the universe has a way of making them known. In those moments, the only choice is to listen, learn, and keep moving forward, even when the answers refuse to come. Some people say they're just trying to get back on their feet. Others don't even pretend. I was somewhere in the middle. 25, broke, tired, and 1 semester short of a degree I couldn't afford to finish. Most nights, I told myself I was just riding it out. Helping my mom after her chemo. Saving a little. Working nights at Walmart until I figured it out. But the truth was, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to see people I went to high school with. I didn't want to explain to anyone why I was still in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, filling shelves at 3 a.m. while the rest of the world moved forward. I started on graveyard shifts in early November. By February, the night crew felt more familiar than most of my own family. There was Marta, a single mom who kept candy in her apron for energy. Rico, who spoke 3 languages but mostly used sarcasm. And me, just trying to disappear into the routine. I liked the quiet. After midnight, there were no customers. Just boxes, the occasional radio static, and the humming white noise of fluorescent lights. The world felt paused. That night, February 9th, it was colder than usual. I remember because the windows on the inside were fogging up. I was restocking air purifiers in aisle 14, right where cleaning products and floor care meet. I always liked that spot. Smelled like lemon-scented calm. It was just before midnight when I noticed him. A guy walked into the aisle, mid-30s maybe. Windbreaker zipped to the chin, slight limp. He wasn't carrying a cart or basket, but he had a 12-pack of soda tucked under one arm. He walked slowly, not browsing, not rushing, just moving with this strange patience. I figured he was a last-minute shopper. Happens all the time. Someone runs in at 11:58 to grab milk or whatever before closing. But he kept looking up, at the ceiling camera. Those little half-domes, black mirrors that reflect nothing but your own uncertainty. He stared at one for a solid 5 seconds before he asked, quiet, almost casual, like we were old co-workers. "These cameras still record after midnight?" I blinked. Yeah, they're 24/7. He didn't look at me, just nodded, then set the soda down. Gently, too gently, like he was placing it there for show. Then he walked away. I didn't think much of it. Just another odd night at Walmart. You see all types. But something felt off in my gut. That soda wasn't a purchase. It was a prop. I tried to shake it. Went back to stacking boxes. Marta passed by a few minutes later, making a joke about how this brand of air freshener smelled like a divorce. I laughed and went back to work. A few minutes later, Greg walked in. Greg was one of our regulars, retired vet, kind of a lonely guy. He'd come in late, grab a couple frozen dinners and a 2-liter of ginger ale, chat with whoever was stocking shelves. He always wore a battered Steelers jacket and mismatched shoes. Said it was his superstition. He nodded as he passed. Quiet night, huh? Yeah, I said. Ghost town. Then, loud and sharp, came a pop. Not like a gunshot, not yet. It sounded more like metal collapsing, like a shelving unit giving way. Greg and I both looked toward the back of the aisle. Then came the second sound, unmistakable this time. A gunshot. I dropped behind a pallet, heart thudding in my throat. My ears rang. Another shout, a man yelling something, followed by a second blast. I peeked around the edge. Greg was on the floor, blood everywhere. His body had dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. His eyes were wide open, not blinking. The man from earlier, the one in the windbreaker, was gone. I scrambled back toward the front counter, half crawling, half running. Hit the panic button behind the register. It buzzed once, then silence. It was a long 11 minutes before the cops arrived. I remember exactly how long because I counted every second. One other person had seen him, Marta. She told police that the guy had tried getting into the break room about 20 minutes before the shooting. She thought he was high, twitchy, talking to himself, muttering something about the recordings and how they never stop watching. The police did what they always do, took statements, locked down the building, asked for descriptions that none of us were entirely confident about. The shooter had walked in, wandered, waited, then left through grocery exit 3, just as chaos erupted. Greg survived somehow. The bullet had shattered his jaw and nicked an artery. They said if it had been a millimeter over, he wouldn't have made it. I visited him once in the hospital, just stood there. He was unconscious, hooked to machines, a white bandage covering the left side of his face. I didn't say a word. Walmart shut down for 3 days. Corporate sent counselors. They handed out pamphlets and free donuts and told us to take our time, processing the event. But when the doors reopened, they still expected the floors to be mopped and the cereal displays rebuilt. I tried to go back. Lasted 4 more shifts. Every time I passed ISIL 14, I felt it. Not fear, not even trauma. Just this pressure, like the air itself remembered. Before I left for good, I asked our security guy to show me the footage. I told him I needed closure. We watched the guy, hoodie, limp, windbreaker, walk into the aisle. He wandered for 37 minutes. Didn't steal, didn't yell, just paced. But every few minutes he stopped and looked directly at the cameras. Dead still. One shot of him standing under the dome above aisle 14 gave me chills. His face was blank, eyes open, no emotion. Like he was waiting for something only he could hear. He didn't even pull the trigger right away. Just stood and stared. Until finally something inside him broke. Then the shots rang out. And before he vanished, the mic caught one sentence. Just one. They saw everything. And they still did nothing. I left Walmart 2 weeks later. Took a job at the local distribution center, sorting mail in silence from midnight to 6. No customers, no cameras, no aisle 14. I told myself it was just another disturbed man, just a freak incident. But late at night, when I see security cameras, especially those dome ones, I get this cold wave up my spine, because I know what they caught. I know what I saw. And I know he was right about one thing. The cameras did see everything, and they still did nothing. Sometimes horror isn't about what people do. It's about what others ignore. It's easy to dismiss someone as crazy, or broken, or dangerous. But when you stare long enough into a lens, when you know you're being watched and still feel invisible, something inside you can break. And when it breaks, it doesn't always make a sound. Until it does.